Earth, 2018. The alliance between governments and tech giants has led to the rise of the surveillance society, distraction technology, the attention wars, and the erosion of your mind. But one show stands against this insidious system. Hosted by the podcast champion, the man of tomorrow, the golden stallion of the tech world, Brian Sovryn. He and his co-hosts form the intellectual resistance. It's time for Sovryn Tech.
You're dressing all in black, from your front to your back, and all your evil ways, they seem to go on for days, and as a matter of fact, you got white smashing up, burning down, tearing up the underground. You wanna live like a super villain, back in the lineup before your time's up. You wanna live like a super villain. Alright. You've been knocking down these doors, you've been filling up this room. You run around the place like your name was Dr. Doom. You're a killer of culture, a vulture of style, and it won't be that long before you end up on trial. You're gonna slash it up, burn it down, tearing up the underground. You wanna live like a super villain, back in the lineup before your time's up. You wanna live like a super villain.
Oh, Golden Stallion, stop making fun of my favorite tech companies. Stop making fun of Apple. Stop making fun of Google. I love them. I gave my whole life to them. Stop making fun of my favorite philosopher, especially that little short guy. Stop making... Oh, baby. With all those tears, you go ahead and you cry the Golden Stallion a river, baby. Because, I just crossed the Atlantic Ocean, just coming back from Europe. Oh, and what a time that I'm going to talk about later, because there's some interesting insights to get in from that. But all the emails that I got, I can't believe there's a tech show that doesn't like all the tech giants. My libertarianism. Oh, give me a break. You know, it's so funny. This show's been going almost 7 years. And I still get all this hate mail from all these people that are just crying, that are saying, oh, won't you stop? Won't you stop? Are you kidding me? 7 years. I ain't ever stopping. The Golden Stallion's here for you every week, all the time, even if I'm a little bit of a day late. But of course, that is because I was just crossing a giant pond, visiting that old Europe, baby. Doing a little hangout in the red light district, and oh man, all the tears from last week's episode. Speaking of that, those tears. Stallion, please stop talking about sex being a good thing, and that pleasure is okay, and that it's okay to be a freak. My wife will leave me if I don't just like keep her controlled and keep her thinking that her pleasure doesn't matter. Oh, your beating heart, baby. Oh. Anyway, I ain't stopping nothing. It is time for Sovryn Tech, and it is I, the Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow, Sabzu, the rated R radio star, here to break it all down, to give you the bleeding edge on fucking everything, baby. You better believe it. It ain't just tech and science, even though that's where we like to concentrate, and we got some interesting tech stories to get into this week. We got all kinds of stuff to get into, but unbelievable. And patrons dropping like there's no tomorrow. Look, I don't care how crazy I sound. I don't care how nuts you think, what the theory that I bring up or that my take is. I do this for me. I do this to get my opinions out there because for fuck's sake, and I don't know why, especially amongst a group of people that supposedly are all about being an individual, that are all about, question authority, question this. Look, questioning authority, I say this all the time, questioning authority isn't about being right or wrong. It's about questioning authority, you understand? Okay? And authorities comes in all shapes and sizes. It doesn't just come from government, okay? Because I'm an anarchist, you know that. It doesn't just come from, from some textbook. It can come from social pressures. It can come from all kinds of things, and I'll question it all. Because Sovryn Tech is not a show that is here to coddle your feelings, to make you feel safe, to give you confirmation bias, to add on to your echo chamber. No. This is as independent a voice as it fucking gets in this business. You understand? That's why, I am the podcast champion. Tap the belt there. All right. Now, with all that said, the emails that I got, I couldn't believe it. What do you mean there's no morality? Guys, gals, Z's. Do you want people out there putting out interesting opinions, new opinions? Do you want hot takes, or do you just want to hear whatever, makes something palatable so that, I got the thousands and thousands of you listening every week, okay, but do you just want palatable shit that 100,000 or 1 million people listen to? Do you really think that's worthwhile? Fuck no, it's not. Support genuinely independent voices, and there are far too few of us. And don't take my word for it, because I also, as much hate mail as I get as much love mail of people saying, holy shit, you want to talk about an individual, you're talking about Brian Sovryn, baby. And thank you. Now, to get into that individuality, we've got some tech news to talk about. From my perspective, and we've got other things to get into. We got some mysteries this week. There's so much to talk about, and then I'm going to talk about perhaps my little jaunt through the old country, as it were. Because of course the United States is just the colonies, right? Maybe it still is. All right, let's get into this. So. Wow. Well, while I was away, and I'll admit, so I have been in Europe for a couple weeks, for the past couple weeks, and some of the stuff, including some of the Patreon content, was pre-recorded, just kind of scheduled to release on its own. It's amazing that you're able to do that today, and it's such a beautiful thing. It makes things so easy for me. Not to say that I wasn't really any less busy. There were still plenty of points where I was doing work there, but anyway. I've been gone for the past couple weeks. That's part of why this episode is coming out late. But I still kept an eye on some tech news and science news, and we'll get into a little bit of that more later. But I was just catching up. I literally just got back yesterday, that being the 8th of September, and so I was playing very, very fast catch up with what was going on. But there's stuff that still crosses my feed that's I get notifications for and everything that I keep a really, really close eye on. So anyway, I do want to say real quick before we go much further that September 8th, of course, 52 years ago. I would have loved to have released this episode then and maybe done a little something special for it, but we'll save that for another time. But 52 years ago on NBC, Star Trek premiered. The original series, of course, Captain Kirk and all the rest. It was the episode The Man Trap, which was not chronologically the first episode. That would be Where No Man Has Gone Before. That's not even counting The Cage. That's a whole other story. But The Man Trap would be the first to air. And wow, would the world literally be changed forever because of that? I have said this so many times. Star Trek is just the most subversive piece of art. It's in the top 3. It's got to be in the top 3 pieces or works of art that are the most subversive in humanity's history. It's got to be in the top 3. It's just. People don't realize. And certainly parents never realized. I don't think, and they sure as hell didn't realize at the time. Just what Star Trek was putting out there and how it was really. I think I really feel that show, evolved the human condition, and because it gave. Just looking at the bridge, and I know George Takei and others have talked about this, just looking at how the bridge operated on the original Enterprise, it really gave you permission, because we live in a permission-based culture, meaning that we think we constantly have to ask for permission from some higher authority. Okay, now, this has nothing to do with consent. That's a completely different situation. Okay, but that we have to think that something is socially okay to do. We have to constantly ask some kind of, authority body or authority figure. That's how we're raised, and how so many people live from cradle to grave. Just watching the function, watching everything happen on the bridge of the Enterprise gave so much permission to do so many things, from being able to interact with, other races of humanity, shall we say, or just the concepts that we can live in relative peace. There's just, so much that it put on display that I still think is really, well, I mentioned this, I made an Instagram post of all things, celebrating it on the actual 8th. And, I said, really, it's been molding and fashioning the best of us for, well, now 52 years. I mean, it really, really has. So happy Star Trek Day. Belated, of course. We're a day late, but certainly well-deserved. And it's so exciting that Star Trek looks like it's just going to be bigger than ever now. I mean, at the rate that things are going. But, of course, if you want to hear about all that, you can become a patron for Sovryn Tech. You go to patreon.com/SovrynTech, and I do a monthly Star Trek update, which sometimes I have guests on for that. Or sometimes it's just me, and we cover all the news going on in Star Trek, which is a whole ton of fun. But, speaking of Instagram, why don't we start breaking into our stories for this week? Shockingly, Instagram has finally implemented token-based token-based two-factor authentication, meaning that you get where you put it in, like, say, Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator or Authy. Don't use Authy, or whatever one you happen to be using. But that PIN that you get that refreshes every 30 seconds, it now accepts that. As to where before it did have two-factor authentication, but it was using SMS-based, which has been known and talked about certainly on this show for years, that it is inherently insecure. It is not the way to do two-factor authentication. And so many other sites and services have had, this PIN-based two-factor authentication for so long. I mean, what is taking this so long for it to be a thing? And it's really, and it is not. It's just not. There was a time where it wasn't so standardized, but now it's to the point any service really should have this implemented. Just about anything that requires you to have an account should have this kind of, not SMS based, it should have two-factor authentication set up. And believe me, I mean, there's some major, Instagram, let's be clear on this, that whether you like Instagram or you use it or not is inconsequential. There are people who make their entire careers based on being, based on Instagram, be they Instagram models, right? Like Erica Fett or something like that, or Vamp, you go down the list. I mean, like there's so many of them. I mean, they make their living. Or how many bodybuilders, bodybuilders and fitness models and everything else, they really, really make their living off of Instagram alone. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily a good idea, but it's what they do. And so for so much money to be on the line, and especially because Instagram is also now implementing like their own shopping carts and everything into the app itself, it's crazy that with that much money on the line that there hasn't been two-factor authentication, the proper two-factor authentication yet. I mean, okay, sure, they're not going to implement YubiKey or use WebAuth or something like that, but for fuck's sake, at least allow us to use our time-based pins. It's unbelievable. I mean, and look, they're not the only ones. I mean, there are some major services out there where a lot of money is on the line where they don't do that. Well, Patreon, for example, Now, they used to allow for you to have, what they call, one-time password tokens, or OTP, that, most people don't know that that's what they're called, but regardless, because you wouldn't think it has anything to do with the token, but that's a whole technical issue there. What they mean by token, it has nothing to do with the cryptocurrency. But anyway, I mean, it's crazy how many sites don't have this implemented, but Instagram finally has it. Maybe that, I don't know if that's going to shame other people into setting it up on their major services or what, but this really needs to be a thing, or people just in general need to be running on WebAuth. In fact, I'm also shocked by that. Well, not exactly, because this is why I think you need a multitude of two-factor authentication options. Not SMS, though. That's one we don't need. But to have the others available, for example, you have WebAuth, which uses YubiKeys, or YubiKey-like, the little USB devices that you can plug in. You can use those to, Facebook, which of course owns Instagram, you can do that on Facebook already. Like, you can use that to log in with the YubiKey. But of course, when something is more of an app and very mobile based, then I can see where that doesn't exactly make sense, because you have to have a very specific type of device to be able to do that. Though with USB-C, you'd think we'd kind of get there. But regardless of all that, OTP authentication is set up on Instagram. So I know a lot of you follow me on Instagram. There's at least 3,000 of you that do, even though my Instagram is not really Sovryn Tech exactly. But I know a lot of you do. And so I'm letting you know, get this set up now. Okay. Take that very seriously. In fact, I have some friends. I have some good friends. One gal in particular I can think of who she has a username that everybody wants. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but that, like, in fact, she gets warnings from Instagram, Russian hackers or whatever are coming after your account, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, that's the thing, is that if you've got a really hot username on there, you really want to have this set up. You want this set up on all of your accounts. But anyway, now you know that it's available there on Instagram. And unfortunately, a lot of these companies, when they even implement these, like Twitter implemented, of all, which, well, for fuck's sake, of course they could, right? They should, right? In fact, they even have, I think they already have WebAuth, or at least YubiKey set up where you can use that. But Twitter, this was back, September of last year, of 2017, when they finally announced that they rolled that out. But they did, that's the thing, they actually didn't announce it at all. It took, I think it was like Ars Technica or one of those sites to finally look around and see, oh, hey, shit, they're allowing for OTP authentication. Well, we need to get on this. I mean, that's the thing, is a lot of times these companies don't announce it at all. What the fuck? But anyway, go do it if you haven't already. Okay, let's move on from that. Let's talk about a company that's just as egregious as Facebook, that being Microsoft. We finally have the name, and oh wow, this is news. If they stick with this kind of nomenclature, I don't think it's exactly going to be news going forward. But this is news. We have the name and kind of the release date of the next version of Windows 10 to come out. And of course, that's version 1809, which really I think that should just be the name of it. Because most people don't pay attention to the fucking name of Windows 10 anyway. Like, a lot of people don't say, well, I've got creator. I mean, some people say, I guess, that, I've got creators update, or I have the April 2018 update. And now we know that the name of the upcoming update, which is originally Redstone 5, that's kind of the internal name for it, is Windows 10 October 2018 update. That is a fucking mouthful. Why not just say Windows 10 1809? Just call it 1809. I mean, I think for the people that will actually give a rat's ass about, like the name of Windows 10, that's perfectly fine for them. They're at that technical level. And for the people that don't care, they don't care. They're just letting Windows 10 do its auto update. And it's part of why I argue that it's actually, I mean, it's not, in a perfect world, auto update is not okay, because that makes things, that raises security concerns as far as trackability and, like individual targeting and so on. But in the world that we live in, where most people don't even bother to, have no clue about what even firmware is and all this other stuff. Let's auto update it. That way we can at least hopefully try and mitigate the problems where people just never do update shit. And then we run into problems with botnets and a whole slew of other exploits that end up, fucking everybody else inadvertently. So, that's kind of why I argue for that, is because most people just don't give a shit. So you better force them to update, even though I know that that's not a great, like there are genuine, legit concerns around that. Until we educate people, about constantly updating their software and so on. It's, that's just kind of the way that it's going to go, and that I recommend it going, because otherwise, we're really, really screwed. Again, putting in a lot of these security best practices, constantly updating, your OS and your apps and software and all that. I mean, all the different things we talk about on Sovryn Tech. The more secure you are, the more secure everybody is. It really, really, I mean, it's not, it's, what's the term Cartridges calls it? Egoistic altruism. I hate the word altruism, but I get it. Egoistic altruism, meaning that, like, kind of helping everybody else, helping out everybody else, as far as, or like everybody in this case with tech, everybody being updated actually ends up helping everybody else. So you doing that for yourself to have your own shit secure effectively makes everyone else secure as well. And that's why it's so important to do that. But anyway, we don't know the date of when this is, because when it comes out, this is not a major revision to Windows 10. A lot of it is security fixes and so on. So you're going to want to update to it, when it gets around to you. If you want to hold off a little bit until it officially gets pushed out to your exact computer, then, feel free to do that. But you are going to want to update to it, certainly, because of the, a lot of the bug fixes and everything happening under the hood with it. But it is going to come out in October. That's all we know. We don't know what date. I mean, and considering the fucking fiasco that we had with the April 2018 update of Windows 10, where, oh yeah, it'll be out on this date. Oh no, we're going to push it back. And the April update didn't actually come out until like mid-May, for most people, or even later. We don't know the date, and it's probably in Microsoft's best interest not to even put a date down, because they completely changed the whole fucking image of Windows 10. The image file. because there was a critical bug that was going to go out with the version of, or with the April 2018 update that they were going to initially push out there, and they just had to pretty much redo the whole process. So yeah, don't give a date, Microsoft. Just when it's ready, let us know. Okay, let the internet know, and then people that want to jump on it right away can jump on it right away. Now, for a product that hopefully not a single person in my audience, the thousands and thousands of you, gives a rat shit about, but just in case one of you do, okay, I want to dissuade you here. Actually, if you can't see why these are a bad idea, I mean, I don't know what I could say that could possibly help you out here. But Snap, of course, Snap Inc., which used to be Snapchat, they are releasing, they announced it a few months ago, but they are finally releasing their second generation spectacles. And they're going to run about $200. Their spectacles, if you remember the first version that came out, I think, what did those run, like $100 or something like that? Somewhere around that price range. But they looked ridiculous. They only took circular pictures. And the idea was that they tethered to your phone, and they would allow for, you could share all these pictures and highlights and whatever on Snapchat. Now, I know some people give me shit for having an Instagram account. And I've said this time and time again. I promise you, I will never, ever, and I know you want to be careful when you say never, but I am so confident in saying this. Okay, I'll shut down Sovryn Tech before I do this. I will never have a Snapchat account. I just think that's so fucking ridiculous. That is so anti-human because the complete lack of attention. Okay, I mean or of attention span that Snap, it's not Snapchat anymore, that Snap promotes is, I mean, like, I don't want to live in that world. I don't even want the app that has me live in that world. I'm just not fucking interested in it whatsoever. I have a big enough problem, speaking on Instagram, I have a big enough problem with like Instagram stories and all these other features that they have. Doodle on this, put a little emoji here and blah, blah. What are you people doing? Like, really? What the fuck are you doing? What am I doing on Instagram? I just want to share some sexy art, for fuck's sake. Okay, and I get excited maybe when I get a little product or something. I want to let my nerdy friends know about it, because nerds are what life is all about. But no, I have no interest in Snapchat. But I can't believe they're still trying this shit out. In fact, I mean, Snapchat's like, or Snap, I don't think the company's going to last. Its stock prices are tanking. I mean, it's like the Bismarck going down here. And now these apparently can do, I mean, they're about twice as powerful as the previous spectacles that Snap released. They do look a little more normal. Like, one is kind of a cat or butterfly design of sunglasses. The other looks like your basic, future so bright I got to wear shades kind of style. Like a pair of Ray-Bans or something. But they can do 70 videos, and now also they can take pictures that are non-circular, which why the fuck not? That doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, look, I mean, you're wearing a fucking camera on your head. Just keep that in perspective. It's the same reason that Google Glass was a bullshit idea on the consumer market. Like I said, Google Glass is a great idea in professional fields. Okay, but in the consumer market, it's just, you're wearing a camera on your fucking head. Like, really, are you okay with this? And if you are, I want you to email me, okay? I want you to email me and give me the whole deal, and we will cover it during an important messages segment on a Sovryn Tech Prime episode. You let me know why you think that that's such a wonderful idea in the consumer market. In professional fields, it's a totally different situation. Okay, I've made that point very clear. But these are just... I think I'm probably going to say something. If I see somebody wearing these things, and it is a little tougher to see the camera on these, I'm probably going to walk up to the person and say, how do you feel about this? You got a camera, just looking at me, staring at me right now. I might even get a little stone cold about it. Just feel it. Yeah, but look, I'm just going to say it. Seriously. I mean, because, again, this is not like, okay, I pull out my smartphone, I want to take a little picture of this moment, I want to save this moment or something like that. Stephanie and I going around Europe, whatever, and, I want to take a picture, of the goddess doing her thing, have the boss looking over a canal in Paris or something like that. Okay, sure, you want to capture that little moment and maybe share it with people or whatever. Like, what kind of people? What are you doing with your life? Not even the person wearing spectacles, to say nothing of how ass important they must think they are, okay, for needing to, at all times, wear a pair of sunglasses that have a camera facing at all times, ready to take a picture at any given moment because holy shit, my life is so goddamn interesting that the whole world's got to see it, baby. Woo! To say nothing of that person. But who the hell are you? What kind of time? What are you doing with, I'm going to sound like the guy, I'm going to sound like the teacher from the Twisted Sister videos. What do you want to do with your life? No, what are you doing with your life? If you are wanting to pay that much attention to what somebody else is fucking doing, let me tell you right now, let the Golden Stallion make it very simple for you. You are doing life wrong. You understand? Go out there, turn off the fucking screen in front of your face that is showing whatever the fuck these spectacles are seeing, and fuck them, and go live your own life. Go do your own thing. Go live. Please. The culture of celebritydom that everybody's buying into today is driving me nuts. I cannot believe it's one thing. Yes, it's stupid of Snap to sell this shit. That's one thing. It's a whole other thing that there are people that would watch the crap that's going to get recorded by these and watch it that often to where it needs to be something that is strapped onto your fucking face. Get a hold of yourselves and give yourself a good shake and say, what the hell am I doing with my life? Stallion, how do you make so much shit? How do you record so many podcasts? How do you write so many books? How do you create this? How do you make video games? How do you have the time? Because I'm not watching whatever the hell's coming on these goddamn spectacles, and I don't have a fucking Snapchat account. That's why I've got the time. So can you. Fucking A. I can't believe where we're going. Look at the world with your own two eyes, not with the screen in front of your face. There is a whole world out there, outside of your 5.5-inch screen. You hear me? A whole world. And you're missing it. And you sure as hell don't need to be seeing it through other people's eyes. Let's see it through your own and enjoy the memories. You don't have to take a fucking picture of everything. It's funny. Like I said, I was traveling through Europe past couple weeks. Went to a few different countries. I've been there before, and I've been to some of these places before as well. So, not like necessarily that it's new. But you got to understand, when I was a younger man, fortunately, the internet wasn't as pervasive as it was. Smartphones, I had a cell phone, but smartphones weren't really a thing. The cell phone was very basic. It didn't even I don't even think it had a camera on it. I remember it was an old Sprint phone. I forget. Now, for the life of me, I can't remember the company that made it. But regardless, we're going to talk about some maybe classic phones here in a little bit on the show. Regardless of that, I learned, fortunately, when I was traveling the world pretty good as a younger man, I learned that the touristy, and most people kind of know this, but they still never implement it when they travel because maybe they feel they don't have enough time or what, I don't know. But I learned that the interesting parts of the rest of the world are not the touristy spots. When you go to Paris, fuck the Eiffel Tower. Yeah, go ahead, see it once, 5 minutes, and then you go. Okay, but the postcard's just as good as the real thing, believe me. And don't touch it because people kiss it. And hell, they hump it. And they rub, all their they rub all their sex juice on it, baby. Woo! Whatever. People do what they do. Be a freak, go for it. Okay, I'm just saying, don't touch it. So I learned that you really want to take in the world and you want to see what other places are really like. You just walk the streets. The regular streets, you don't go to, it's nice to go to museums and do all that shit. Of course it is. Okay. But walk the streets, when you're going to those museums, like you want to see, the great work by this artist and so on. And absolutely, I do too. People know me. I'm such a fan of art. Okay. And classic art and all that. Yeah. Go see that. But how about you walk the streets that the artist walked? That way you can feel what they felt. You can get a sense of what they were feeling, of what they were doing. Okay, but you've got to, and the thing is that most of the people, like when I was traveling the past couple of weeks, everybody's like, oh yeah, let's go see this. Let's go. All the touristy shit. It's like, no. I just want to, let's just go outside. Let's walk out of the hotel and let's just start walking and let's go down some side streets and let's go down this. Don't worry, I'm a big guy. I'll take care of things. Let's just do that. And then you really get to experience another city, another geographic area. and so on. And I feel that that's the perfect, really analogy or allegory. Yeah. For this, don't experience the world through other people's eyes or what they tell you how you should experience it. Okay, I mean, it's nice if a friend gives you a recommendation, but we're not talking about friends here. I mean, these are people that are on a level of self-centeredness, and I'm not saying that in a good way. Okay, being self-interested is a good thing. Being self-centered, that's another thing. Okay, this is a level of self-centeredness with these fucking spectacles that, I think was only the purview of emperors and kings and tyrants and asshats throughout history. It's at that level, I mean, you got people with levels of self-importance that could split atoms. You hear me? Don't feed them. Don't feed them the fucking attention, and just see the world through your own eyes. Okay? That's the moral of the story here. Now, let's get on to one last bit. And we won't spend a whole ton of time on this, but this is something to look forward to, and you can actually download the alpha of it now, but the Tor browser. So on Android, okay, the Tor project, the official Tor project, is releasing an official Tor browser for Android and Android only. This is not coming out for iOS. It is in the Play Store already. You can download the alpha, and by early 2019, that's the projection right now. Though in the software world, sometimes things get delayed, and hey, I've become much more understanding over the years as I have tried to release my own projects, how that ends up working. Regardless, in early 2019, this will officially replace Orfox and Orbot, I think, which is, well, it'll certainly replace Orfox. Orbot's use is kind of up in the air. I mean, the nice thing about Orbot is that it routes all of your phone's traffic through Tor if you set it up right. But the Tor browser will definitely, will automatically connect to Tor, kind of like how Briar, like the Briar messaging app, which I highly recommend, uses Tor, forwards everything through Tor automatically, whether you have Orbot activated, installed, or not. So the Tor browser will be able to do that. It's not fully functioning. The alpha is pretty rough, but you can download it now if you want to. And I mean, one thing, even if you're not going to use it, one of the reasons I like to install an alpha, especially on these kinds of apps, is that way I know when they get updated and when they are officially released. Just having it there, even if I don't use it, having it installed on my phone if I have the space, is a good thing to do. That way when it is actually officially ready, or when it's more at the point where it's consumer set. Okay. And so this will replace Orfox, which is fine. I mean, the Guardian Project, and also the Guardian Project tweeted out about it, who they were originally working on Orfox and Orbot, and well, actually Tor Project, I think, was still officially working on Orbot, but there's a relationship between the Guardian Project and the Tor Project, and the Guardian Project says this is totally great. I mean, no problem. The Guardian Project's working on their, on other things as well. So I think this is great. I don't know about F-Droid and if they're going to make the repositories available more publicly. That's something I'll be keeping an eye on. But right now, the alpha is available in the Google Play Store if you want to try it out. But for right now, mainly you're going to still want to use Orfox regardless. But there's a link in the show notes that's all about that if you want to jump on it. I mean, there's nothing, there's no problem here. This is fine and dandy. If you don't have to activate Orbot, I think they should leave Orbot available. That way you can, you can push other apps like Twitter and whatever else through Tor if you want to. Of course, with the PWA, the Tor browser for Android is going to be based on, I think it's based on Firefox 60, if I remember correctly. And of course, the Tor browser on any other platform is always based on an older version of Firefox, which is fine. I think that can handle progressive web apps. And so you should be able, I guess you could just use Twitter as a PWA, which Twitter's talking about now, literally replacing their desktop site with the PWA, and you're just going to use the progressive web app on whatever platform you happen to be on, desktop or mobile or otherwise, which is interesting if things go that route, but we'll see. Because, not having an actual desktop site, I imagine they have metrics of how many people use the desktop site. I don't know. That's pretty weird stuff. But anyway, regardless, I don't have any take on that, whether they're actually going to run with it and what that all will look like. I mean, we know what the progressive web app looks like, and it works very well. But regardless of that, I would leave Orbot available, and I would continue to develop it. But just having it where you just open up the Tor browser and Tor's routing through it and everything, and it, maybe it's kind of sandboxed. Beautiful, great, wonderful. Which, I mean, Firefox by design is already very much sandboxed, using its own security certificates and otherwise from the rest of the Android operating system. So I think that that's wonderful. Again, no complaints about this. There's no, but what about all the great work that's been done on Orphox? No, you don't understand. Guardian Project's like, yeah, fine, please, Tor Project, go ahead and develop the app so we can work on, the browser so we can work on other things. It's no problem. So keep an eye out for that. Again, early 2019 is the expected, or is the projected launch for the full-on consumer-ready app, but you can get the alpha now. Anyway, we'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech, and we'll get into our main story for this week, and we're going to talk some smartphones. We'll be right back.
Hey, look! Got an energy spike.
Pull back!
Launch.
Bombing the Narn back to the Stone Age wasn't enough for you?
Then we heard it. The sound of something terrible being born.
This is madness.
Station 3 to Commander Ivanova.
Centauri have launched a full-scale assault.
Time is come and gone. It's our turn now.
2 million tons of spinning metal, all alone in the night. A world where empires rise and fall, where dreams are born and die, where war and hatred are challenged by love and faith. In the third age of mankind, an age plagued by an evil empire that seeks to destroy humanity. It is our last, best hope for peace, for victory, for freedom. It is Babylon 5.
Babylon 5 is available for download on your favorite torrent site. See it now to experience the greatest show in television history. Babylon 5.
Story of the week.
Woo, I get a lot of people that ask me about that music. Like, that is so awesome. And that's actually from an album called Hexadecimal Genome by an old friend of mine, Bitshifter. And if you want to find his stuff, he does all that on a Game Boy. It's so badass. I just love Bit. I mean, man. Anyway, so if you're wondering where that's from, and I used to use that, and a lot of the music that you've been hearing in recent episodes is classic Sovryn Tech. If you go back to like the first 50 episodes or so, you'll hear a lot of this music. And I've reintroduced it because I like to shake up the podcast every once in a while. But, real quick, before we get into our main story here, we are on episode 294. And that means episode 300 is coming up fast and hot. And can the Golden Stallion make something special for episode 300? I think after episode 200, you just pretty much wait until episode 500. But maybe we'll make something special. I don't want to make any promises. But, woo, could things get interesting. Anyway, all right, let's get into our main story of the week. And this is actually coming from the Register, which, it's funny because, so I had a burner phone with me in Europe. I'm going to tell you more about that when we get into the climax. But I had a burner phone, or as a smartphone that if something happened to it, I wouldn't give a shit. Okay. And, I got a SIM card, a local SIM card. I'll tell you more about that later. All of which is stuff that I'm actually going to include in the Dark Android book, which is still coming. We decided to bake in a lot more now because we've got the time and people are being patient with it. So thank you for that. But of course, if you want to get a book, well, you'll hear about that. You might hear about that later in the show. But if you want to get a book, Sovryn Universe Volume 1, it's out there. Link is in the show notes. Jump on it. You want some sexy short fiction? I got your hookup. All by me. Woo! Check it. Anyway. So, I got a SIM card and all that. And once you have a number, in this case, it was in Britain. Once you have a British phone number, I mean, and the APN and everything updates automatically on your phone, from what, say, initially was American, suddenly Google starts feeding you all of these stories from, British sources. But I'm a big fan of the Register. There's so many great journalists over there. And they have no problem giving governments a hard time, as well as the tech giants. So, I really like it. So I'm happy to read from them. But like I said, some of the stuff I kept an eye on and came up while I was away. And this is one of the stories that ended up doing so. And it's from September 6, 2018 by Andrew Orlowski. And it's Google's other phone platform turns up in post-apocalyptic MOBE, which I'm guessing MOBE is some kind of slang word for mobile. That's a new one for me. But anyway, let's read a bit of the story here, then we're going to talk about it. What do you mean by Google's other phone platform? Like they have something other than Android? Are we talking about Fuchsia? No, it's not Fuchsia. Ooh, what is this? Well, this is something that actually was, we'll talk about it here, but it was something that was announced back in like June. But anyway, we'll break that down in a minute. Here's the story. Hikers, bikers, and builders have contributed to an unlikely British success story. Founded in 2009, Bullitt, and that's Bullitt, which has just released the Cat B35, licensed the Cat brand from Caterpillar. Caterpillar, Stallion breaking in, of course, the construction company, make the big hose and all that stuff, right? And set about building extremely useful and clever phones for the rugged niche. With the global smartphone brands lapsing, Samsung shunned the UK with a rugged Galaxy S8 last year. It has found unexpected success. The Bullitt team does more than wrap some rubber around a cheap generic dumb phone. The company's FLIR thermal imaging smartphone, the Cat S60, scooped up the Best Product Award at Mobile World Congress 2 years ago. Not all of its initiatives have been such a success, though. The Kodak-branded extra camera phone received lukewarm reviews. Smart or dumb, Bullitt's cat phones are typically usable with gloves and wet hands, so businesses or consumers engaged in any kind of outdoor activity will consider the premium worth paying. This week, it added something between a smartphone and a dumb phone by licensing KaiOS, that's K-A-I-O-S, the software used in Nokia's revived Banana phone. So Stallion breaking in here for a second. Now, if you remember the FLIR phone, this is the Cat phone. Again, it's branded just like the company that makes a lot of construction vehicles and equipment and all that. Just the name alone is worth it because you instantly think tough and rugged and so much. As much as you would think of that from Tonka, right? You certainly think about it with that. We did talk about the FLIR smartphone 2 years ago when it did come out because it had a thermal imaging camera built into it, which was pretty unique stuff at a time when you had Project Tango and a lot of other interesting ideas being implemented into smartphones, some of which have become a thing, some of which have not. These FLIR thermal imaging cameras are in use, but they certainly didn't become a standard by any means within smartphones, nor has really rugged been like a standard. And that's kind of sad. Like for years, I used a lot of Kyocera phones, which most people think, what, Kyocera, what the fuck's that? Kyocera is another company that builds like waterproof, like completely covered in sapphire phones and all this. Really, really rugged stuff. And I like that just because, well, for lack of a better way of putting it, I'm a pretty rugged guy. I don't like, for an example, I don't like wearing sandals. I hate wearing sandals. You know why? Because you never know when in life you need to suddenly break into a fast sprint, and sandals are not going to allow for that. I'm one of those guys that likes to have very few things, but likes to be prepared and ready. And you never know when you're going to have to jump into a waterfall or who knows what, and goddamn it, your smartphone's dead when you do it. Not that the phone I have right now is waterproof, because that's also kind of going away. Really, these rugged phones, I know Apple's doing it now, but a lot of, for a while, like, what is it, the Moto G series? Like, they're not rugged anymore. They're not waterproof anymore. That seems to have kind of fallen away, and that's sort of a shame. So I'm glad when a company still comes out with this stuff. But there's a more interesting story to be told about this. But it is interesting that this has become very much a niche market, when I think for a little while in smartphones, it was trying to become a thing. And it just didn't exactly take off. Of course, that's an issue in the smartphone industry in general, is they're trying to recapture the magic of, say, 2007 to, 2013, 2014 maybe, where people were just dying to know what the next features for phones were. So where now pretty much all phones are the same. So, differentiating yourself is certainly a, worthwhile thing to do, I think. But anyway, also they mentioned Nokia's the Banana phone, where they're re-releasing that classic styled phone. That's been delayed like again and again. I'm intrigued to get one of these because it has KaiOS, and I want to test that out. What is KaiOS? Let's talk about that. I'll read from the story itself, but then I want to break it down because you probably didn't know this was a thing. KaiOS, which is formerly Firefox OS, straddles that peculiar territory between a fully fledged smartphone OS and a quote-unquote dumb single-tasking feature phone OS. But it meets modern requirements such as 4G LTE and voice over Wi-Fi and Exchange email, and allows phone makers to knock out fairly functional devices much more cheaply than a landfill Android. The Cat B35 is heat resistant, should survive drops of up to 1.8 meters, is IP68 certified, and the 2300 milliampere battery apparently should last for 30 days of standby. This is what I miss about feature phones, right? Stallion breaking in. The battery life just went for fucking ever, you know? I mean, you can buy smartphones now. It is kind of becoming a thing where you can buy smartphones that can go a couple days on their battery, right? They'll have a 4,000 milliampere, you know, or 5,000 or whatever. That'll give you that kind of you know, long-lasting battery, which is what people want, you know? But certainly if you kind of dumb down the OS, you can get even better, including with what is otherwise a very standard and only lucky if it's a single day battery size for, say, an Android or Apple phone, or iPhone. But anyway, let's read on a little bit. It also bears the fruit of Google's investment in the platform. Ooh, this is where it gets interesting. Google Maps Assistant, Google Assistant, and YouTube are included, and Twitter and Facebook clients can be downloaded. It's priced at 109 euros, which, if I remember right, recently on my trip to Europe, I mean, that puts it in like the 130 range, somewhere around there. The dollar and the euro are actually pretty close right now. The Bullet Group is also focusing on security conscious organizations. In June, Bullet signed up to the BlackBerry Secure Manufacturing Process Certification Scheme, which encompasses embedding keys in the device at manufacturing time and secure boot. So one would expect defense procurement to be somewhere on the to-do list. So anyway, this is an interesting move. You know, we don't get to really talk about phones, mobile phones, much anymore for the very obvious reasons that I described, that, you know, they're all the same. They're not necessarily doing anything interesting. Well, this is something that is very interesting. In fact, I would love to have this phone. And the BlackBerry security process, of course, you know, is everything in that, does everything that goes through the BlackBerry security manufacturing process have some kind of backdoor for government? Most likely. I don't want to say that for certain, but it's a pretty damn good bet. But that's still, you know, better than the average lack of security done on any hardware level for the average mobile phone today. So, I mean, this is a very interesting piece of kit here. That, again, I would love to have my hands on. Unfortunately, now, what would be really nice is if KaiOS could run Signal. If it could run Signal, I'd buy it just like that. Or even if it could do Telegram or something, I would be on top of this fucking phone. Or I would be on top of any phone running KaiOS. Now, KaiOS is really the interesting thing to talk about here, because Google did, back in June of this year, 2018, Google put in a $22 million investment into the development of KaiOS, which is a fork, or, I mean, it's not really a fork, it's more the continuation and rebranding of what originally was Firefox OS, which I was initially supportive of and I thought was a great idea. Believe me, I am more than happy that Firefox is reconcentrating on just making a great web browser. And I think they have largely achieved that. Okay, and we've talked about that over the past, really since last November, when, you know, Firefox Quantum finally came out. So I'm glad that they're reconcentrating on that sort of thing and trying to get the open web and all this stuff, you know, making that their gig. But I'm also pleased to see another operating system really entering the fray. It is interesting to me that Google, now, I mean, there's obvious reasons why Google would invest in KaiOS, which, like I said, it's not like a full-on, dare I say, smart operating system. It's not a very extensible operating system like Android or iOS. Okay, this is something that's very locked down. It's very much like WebOS. It's very much, you know, like your basic dumb phone, right? Which means that it's not Android or iOS or Windows 10 or something like that. Now, why would Google invest in this, and why would they, like, what's the purpose here? Well, here's the thing, is that if this, again, the main point here is that with KaiOS, you can sell really cheap phones and manufacture really cheap phones, because KaiOS can run on like 256 mega RAM. I mean, that's even lower than what we've talked about recently, which is Android Go, right? Which can run on 512 mega RAM or up to 1 gig, or, you know, there's devices that have 2 gig of RAM on it. getting smartphones into emerging markets is a big deal. And why? And it's the reason that I think that Google wanted to invest in this, why they put $22 million in, and why they're putting YouTube and Google Maps and other apps on there, including Assistant of all things. That blows my mind that Google Assistant is on there. And I think the reason simply is that they want the data from these emerging markets, from all the millions and billions of people that are in these emerging markets that might end up buying a KaiOS phone because it is so inexpensive. Okay, so if they can collect all that map data around the world, especially in parts that, say, isn't so easy for one of their Google Maps cars to get around on, well, fuck, of course they're going to invest in that. This has nothing to do with them thinking that Android is going to fail, by no fucking means. Or, it has nothing to do with that. This is just making sure that they are still collecting data from every smartphone on the planet. It's the same reason that they make their apps available, on iOS, right? Really, it is. So this is, that KaiOS is something to look out for. I am intrigued to get my hands on a phone that uses it. I might go for the Nokia banana phone when it eventually does come out, because I really did love that design back in the day. It feels very Matrixy, right? I could go for that, or hell, I wouldn't mind having this cat phone if they made it available in the States some way, or if as long as it worked in the States, I'd be all over it. But I would like to see with KaiOS, really, if say Telegram or Signal or some of these, some secure messaging apps took this operating system seriously, this could become a very, very interesting alternative to what to choosing between Android and iOS, especially if you're getting some real hardware security baked into some of the devices that end up taking advantage of it. So this is an interesting move, something I'm going to be keeping an eye on. But to break up the monotony, not the monopoly, but it's a duopoly, but to break up the monotony of iOS and Android, fuck yeah, I'm all for that. Let's have a ton of operating systems for mobile phones. So KaiOS, this is the thing, and that cat phone, I gotta admit, I like that rugged. Rugged, to me, sexy, very sexy. So, all right, we'll be right back with some more Sovereign Tech. Keep your eye out for this stuff. Hey, I want to tell you about a Sovereign Tech sponsor. Now, you may have known it as Zencash, but they have gone through a bit of a rebranding. And hey, I get it. The rebranding is Horizon. And again, not like Horizon, Horizon. So Horizen. And you can find their website, horizon.global. And they're still, the monetary, the cryptocurrency is still called Zencash and so on. But again, like we've always said, Zencash was originally an entire platform, and Horizon is putting that on the horizon, baby. So you want to check it out. Go to Horizon. Again, it's HORIZEN.global, Horizon.global, and I thank them for sponsoring Sovereign Tech. Now, let's get back to the show. Woo!
This Week in Blockchain.
It is time for This Week in Blockchain, of course, a new segment that I've introduced where, once a week I make sure that we get in some talk about blockchain technology, even though the story that I have this week might make you think, what the hell's the point? And in fact, the story that I have this week really points at, well, if this is true, if what I'm about to tell you, and this is coming from somebody who is, for varying reasons, highly respected. I'm not going to say he isn't intelligent. I do think he's very intelligent. But someone who is highly respected in the crypto space. If his prediction and comments are true, then I think most blockchain, like real blockchain, like totally blockchain-based podcasts and media are pretty much going to die. Like, just think of the podcast, and it's probably going to fall away. And let's read it here. I'm actually reading from the website newsbtc.com. And the headline is, Ethereum co-founder, blockchain growth based on marketing is hitting a dead end. But what he's really saying here, and of course, Ethereum co-founder, we're talking about Vitalik Buterin. And what his claim is that there will no longer be these 1,000x returns on cryptocurrency. Like, that's just not going to happen. Okay, so I want to break this story down, get into, what he actually said. Now, people know, okay, like I said, Vitalik is genuinely a smart guy. I'm going to give him that credit. I am not a fan of Ethereum at all. I recently got a question asked into the show for a Sovereign Tech Prime episode, to talk about during This Week in Blockchain, to talk about why I am so ardently anti-Ethereum. I will be doing that. And I want to make it a very, very nice case. I want to make it a very complete case. So I am compiling that, and I'd like to talk about it next week. Okay. And so as long as everything goes according to plan, I will get into why I am so anti-Ethereum next week, because it's been a while since I've broken that down. But anyway, I'm intrigued by this, but let's read the story here. So Ethereum co-founder Vitalik Buterin is of the opinion that the cryptocurrency market is unlikely to experience an explosive bullish rally similar to the one seen in late 2017 ever again. The gold rush in the past, and now the average person is aware of blockchain. The gold rush is in the past, and now the average person is aware of blockchain and digital currencies, thus erasing the surprise element of last year. Vitalik Buterin was at an Ethereum and blockchain conference in Hong Kong when he told Bloomberg that opportunities for 1,000 times growth in the cryptocurrency market are no longer out there. The blockchain community is at a new level of growth, which is based on the adoption of real applications by real people, instead of spreading the word to new enthusiasts willing to invest in digital assets. Quote, this is from Vitalik. The blockchain space is getting to the point where there's a ceiling in sight. If you talk to the average educated person at this point, they probably have heard of blockchain at least once. There isn't an opportunity for yet another 1,000 times growth in anything in the space anymore. End quote. Buterin said as he explained that the blockchain community's marketing strategy throughout the first 6 or 7 years is getting close to hitting a dead end. Now it is up to the blockchain ecosystem to strive to get people who are already interested in cryptocurrencies to be involved as consumers of blockchain products in real life. Quote, go from just people being interested in real applications, or go from just people being interested in real applications of real economic activity, end quote, he said. Anyway, there's a little bit more where it's explaining more about Ethereum and so on. But I want to, let's talk about this, okay? Because first off, I've been in, come 2019, I'll be able to say I've been in the blockchain space for 10 years, which is very exciting to be able to say I've been in it for a decade. I've been in it for a very long, from the beginning. Okay. Like I remember first hearing about it on the forums and everything, and holy shit, I was like, wow, this is really interesting stuff. Now let me give you some harsh realities, okay, about blockchain news sources, including ones I think like News BTC and so on. Okay. And this comes from, I'm just going to say it comes from personal experience. I'm not going to give you a bunch of details on that. Unless it's quoting or making quoting some kind of luminary in the crypto space, which yes, Vitalik is considered that. Unless it's something like that, or it's some kind of, story, say that has to do with Bitcoin or Zcash, something that's already well established. To get a story placed about, your new cryptocurrency or your new blockchain technology that's just so goddamn exciting, you have to do what's called pay to play. Okay. Again, I'm not going to go into the details how I know about this, but I am asking you to trust me as you often do. Take your biggest, you think of it, Cointelegraph, whoever. Just take your pick of the organization. And if you want to get mentioned there, you're going to hash out a few $1,000s to get a story printed about you. And they'll make it a hell of a story. They'll make it, the biggest, they'll give you all that custom artwork. They'll make it they'll put your name up in lights. You'll be full marquee. Okay. But you're going to have to pay for it. Almost the entirety, like I said, unless it's stories like this coming from some kind of luminary or from, again, Bitcoin or Ethereum, or something that, or like Zcash, or so on, something that already has been well established for years. Unless it's that, like, understand, and they don't have to, and they won't tell you that it's a paid placement, that like this story was paid for, but it is. I don't trust. In fact, it's part of the reason I wanted to do This Week in Blockchain segment is because I don't get paid. I mean, yes, I have sponsors like Horizon but I tell you it's a sponsor. It's a sponsor. Okay. Like there's no chicanery going on here. Okay. I can break down what's actually going on, what's worthwhile talking about. And, I got to admit, I agree with Vitalik here that the days of where there's going to be, because most of the people that need to know or want to know, they know, there's not that shock where, ooh, what's this new blockchain thing? I'm going to toss all my money into it. That's not happening anymore. All of this has matured and people are flipping out whenever, the amount of stories about just in the past week Bitcoin's down to a new low and blah, blah, blah. And then, but in the past 4 hours, it's gone up 400 or, I mean, get a hold of yourselves. I have to keep saying that. These people are nuts. This is as much a tacit admission that, your run-of-the-mill ERC20 token and whatever other bullshit, which is the thing that's holding up Ethereum of all ironies, and all this. I mean, like it's all falling away, but it's also an admission that a lot of the news around the technology is just pure bullshit. It really is. And this is something, honestly, what Vitalik is saying people need to be interested in is something that I've been saying for years on this show, and why I stopped talking about blockchain, because nobody did care about real application and real use of these technologies. It was all just, pixie dust and promises being put around. Oh, we're going to do this. Oh, we're going to take on YouTube with blockchain. Oh, we're going to, the fuck you are. No, you're not. And it's one of my problems with Ethereum is that everything that Ethereum said, in their marketing that they were going to replace, they are inefficient at replacing, or not everything, but most of the things that they want to replace, they're slow. It's not going to work. And that, I think, is the other reality that's sinking in with all of this, is that a lot of the applications that people thought they could use blockchain for, people are finally figuring out very quickly, oh no, blockchain doesn't work for that. Exactly. Blockchain is not the end all be all solution for fucking everything. Okay. It's just not. and it's my saying, I have a very years old saying in the blockchain space, which is that, here's one part of it, which is just because it was, a bad idea without blockchain doesn't mean it's suddenly a good idea once you put it on blockchain. Okay. But the other part of that is that blockchain doesn't solve every problem. Blockchain everything is not meant for blockchain. You do not want to blockchainize the world. And by fuck's sake, you do not want to do that, which is part of another one of my problems with Ethereum. Like I said, hopefully next week I can get into a deeper dive on that part of things. But regardless, yeah, this space it's almost, like I said, it's almost 10 years. It's getting mature. It's realizing, we're not meant to replace everything. We can't actually do that with blockchain. And it's not like, in time we'll be able to. No, you find out this doesn't work on blockchain, right? And I think all of that is actually, like, so much of that is really implied by Vitalik's statement that this 1000X thing isn't going to happen anymore. He's basing it upon the fact that, nobody's surprised by this stuff anymore. I would base the same statement off of that, but also a lot more, that people are realizing, oh shit, this doesn't exactly work, and this is scary because if blockchain technologies. Now, a lot of implementations of blockchain technologies actually have nothing to do with an actual cryptocurrency, like a token that has some kind of financial value. It's using blockchain for its security and data storage capabilities and so on. And that's where a lot of this is going. Okay. And you can't really invest in that because it's being done also for the fact that it's being done by tech giants that don't need your money, right? Like, IBM or Amazon and so on. And I think, honestly, like when all of these ERC20 tokens that are, crowdfunding all of these different ideas and companies and everything, when it comes time for the piper to get paid and people find out, oh shit, actually this whole idea that released this token in the first place is vaporware, doesn't exist, can't exist, won't exist. When that finally hits, then there's really not going to be ever another 1000X token to come. Well, okay, you don't want to say ever. You want to be very careful to say never. You don't want to say never when you're really not that certain. Some dark horse could end up coming in. But when that finally hits, then this is really going to, it's going to be funny if we find out that the real advantages and uses of blockchain don't end up actually having anything to do with money. It's always going to be there. Bitcoin's not going anywhere. And is Bitcoin going to do another 1000X return? Yes, absolutely. But there's not going to be this thing. I agree. I agree with Vitalik that there's not going to be this thing that you can invest in for pennies or less. Okay, now, and that that's going to end up going to like 1,000 or so on. Now, on the flip side of this, is it possible that Vitalik's saying this to kind of dissuade people from investing in things other than Ethereum? Yep. Certainly. I totally think that's completely valid. But at the same time, like, he's really shooting himself in the foot as far as that goes, because he's also telling you that it's not really worthwhile to invest in the ERC20 tokens, which again are the backbone of Ethereum's value right now, in my opinion, because so many people are building on top of that. The blockchain space, I mean, I think you have a few players out there. Zcash being one of them. Certainly Bitcoin, of course, is one of them. And maybe you could get into a couple, a few others here and there. Okay, that I think will continue to hold value going into the future and will continue to actually be like a form of currency and thus cryptocurrency. All right. But yeah, I buy into this prediction that the days for, just some random token coming out and going up 1,000x, those days are gone. Those days aren't coming forward anymore. And I think that when people realize that, over time, this whole industry around blockchain news and blockchain podcasts and so on. I mean, for Sovryn Tech, it's just one segment, that I can bring in and take away as I see fit because, I'm more or less a one-person operation, minus a couple, the people that help out. But for all these other places, they rely upon this. So, and maybe they'll just talk about Bitcoin forever, and maybe that's how things will go. But I think a lot of these technologies are going to completely fall away. And if they just want to talk about the constant disasters, they can do that. But then they're going to be talking themselves out of a job. So this has wide-ranging ramifications. But I do think Vitalik's right about this. And actually, I think Ethereum is going to prove the point that nothing is going to go. You're not going to get 1,000x returns anymore when Ethereum finally crashes. A lot of people are seeing that Ethereum doesn't scale. So it's really just a matter of time. But anyway, all right, we'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech. We'll shake things up. But interesting prediction and one that I agree with. But, again, to be clear, a prediction we talked about in the past, I still buy into Tim Draper's prediction that was by 2022 that Bitcoin will be worth $250,000 a coin. Absolutely. So there's still some 1,000x returns, to look forward to. It's just not in, a lot of those little shit coins that you might be thinking about. Anyway, all right, I'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech. Woo!
From Big Finish Productions, Blake 7, The Classic Audio Adventures.
I'm taking Liberator in on manual. We'll be in teleport range in 2 minutes.
What the hell was that?
Information. Liberator has been attacked.
You don't say.
Put up the force wall. Confirm.
Message to all ground commanders. Initiate the final phase. Let's crush these rebels once and for all.
My name is Avon. Kerr Avon.
Kerr Avon.
Our hostage arrives, which you may be unnecessary.
As a hostage, it's nice to be superfluous.
You can go to Blake7.com to find more of the new adventures of one of science fiction's greatest masterpieces, Blake 7, at Blake7.com.
Important messages.
It is time for important messages where people send in emails to me, messages into me, whatever method you happen to use. Some people send them on Twitter. Some people send them on Telegram. Some people send them on Signal. Some people send them via email, bbs@sovereigntech.com, or you can use the contact form at my website, zog.email. You see right at the top, it says contact us. And you can message me anonymously through that if you want. But anyway, we have a bit of a mystery on our hands this week that somebody asked me about. And this was something that I did catch. So, your question is fortuitous. But let me read it here. Hey, Stallion, not sure if you saw the story this week that they found a quote-unquote leak aboard a Russian module of the International Space Station. I know you keep a sharp eye on space news, and I wondered if you had any unique insights on what happened there. They're saying a human could have done it from the outside? I thank you, as always, for your groundbreaking work and bleeding-edge thinking. So, well, thank you for that. That's very kind words at the end there. Okay, so let's talk about this. This is just a few days ago. that, and it's a mystery. Okay. So the International Space Station, of course, hovering 250 miles above the Earth. And yes, it is actually doing so because humans do actually go to space. We also landed on the moon. And the Earth is round. I just want to make sure, that my positions on all that are very clear, because apparently in libertarianism, you have to differentiate, you have to say that you believe that. Anyway, I guess I should also say there is an objective reality for those that are wondering, because apparently some people think there isn't. Okay, so regardless, so this is pretty interesting. And honestly, the official story, dun, 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 never believe the official story. No, I'm kidding. The official story is that we don't know. As in humanity, nobody in humanity knows what the hell happened with this module that was leaking. Right now, it appears, so the first idea was that, it's some kind of micrometeorite, which is, a micrometeorite is this, just little speck, a little rock, a pebble that is hurtling at incredible speeds towards something, and it ends up tearing through or breaking through, and at the right speeds, it certainly could break through something. Of course, those kind of micrometeorites aren't really a problem on Earth because the atmosphere, kind of like we talked about in a recent episode of Sovryn Tech about the breakthrough Starshot probes, that they're so small that just about any atmosphere that could handle an Earth-like that would have an Earth-like troposphere, ionosphere, so on, would break that up instantly, before it would hit the ground. This is also true for micrometeorites, which is why they're not a problem. Now, in science fiction, of course, take, for example, Star Trek, right? We're celebrating Star Trek Day today on Sovryn Tech. In science, in Star Trek, you have the deflector dish, the main deflector dish on the front of the Enterprise. And of course, in the original series, it literally looked like a satellite dish. Later on, it would just look like this kind of blue glow, circular glow, or oval or something at the front of the ship. And what that was doing is it was actually a low-level force field or shield that was keeping things like micrometeorites from busting through the hull as the Enterprise goes, hurtles along at incredible speeds. Okay, so this is something people have known about for a good long while. But this is not the case with this. Right now, the theory going is that, it gets even more mysterious, okay? Because, and what initially made it mysterious is like, wait, this happened looks like it happened from the outside. So if a human did it, and it looks like a human did it, like it looks like there's a drill that went through. That's what they're saying. Who was on the outside that did that? Right? Like that's what's making this so wild. So, but now kind of the running theory is that, and Roscosmos, kind of the Russian version of NASA, this is a module that came up from a Soyuz launch. They're saying that it could have been a fuck up. Somebody could have punctured the hull of this module on Earth while it was still on Earth, and then they did some kind of temporary patching and nobody knew about it. But then when they launched it, and attached it to the ISS, the temporary fix for the fuck up that was done on Earth is, came loose effectively because, how did they solve it now? When it's in space and they just discovered it, well, they did a temporary fix again. So that's kind of the running theory of what happened here. So do I have a hot take on this? No, I don't think that there's some there's some aliens or some, secret human organization out there that busted a hole into the ISS and nobody knew about it. I don't think that for a second. It does seem to be pretty clear that it's not a micrometeorite. Do I have any other theories as to what happened? No, not really. Granted, I'm just a person. I appreciate you asking. And I think it's important to bring up because a lot of people are like, hey, wait a minute. You got these guys who, maybe they think the Earth is round, but maybe they, and maybe they don't think that, maybe they think we actually landed on the moon, but they think that there's aliens out there and all this other wild shit and there's UFOs and blah, blah, blah. Before you go blaming UFOs, no. It's entirely possible that the way that they fixed it now was the same thing that got done on Earth because somebody accidentally drilled through it there and it didn't pass through quality control. Now, you could say, wow, shouldn't QC be on top of things on Earth, considering, the importance of this, that this is something people could have died over, etc., blah, blah, blah. No one was in danger at any given point with this. But that said, we do know, sadly, because there's been tragic incidences, Columbia, Challenger, and so on, we do know that, yeah, I mean, these organizations miss things. They really do miss things, and they miss things that can be lethal and that can be, literally catastrophic for the mission and so on. So no, it's not unheard of, because I think that's another claim that a lot of people are wanting to make. It's like, no, it was fucking aliens, because, they wouldn't, Roscosmos or NASA or whoever, they wouldn't, allow this kind of, this kind of patchwork to be done on Earth. They wouldn't allow this kind of fuck up. They have experts that are looking at all this shit all the time. It wouldn't happen. No, we know that these kind of things do happen, that quality control. And I mean, it's almost insulting to just call it quality control, but that's that's really the technical term for a lot of this. Engineers will miss things, and we've lost shuttles over it, and we've lost lives over it. And more, not just those shuttles. So yeah, I don't think there's anything. I mean, yes, there's a mystery here. We do need to figure out what exactly happened, but I also don't think it's a mystery that points at anything too odd. I think in this case, I think there's very simple explanations for what went on here. But boy, it makes for some pretty great headlines. It's like, oh, there's a leak outside of the ISS, and a human did it, but we don't know who that was. And there's 2 Americans, 2 Russians, and a German, I think, up there right now in the ISS, and we know it wasn't any of them. I don't think it was aliens. I don't think it was another human or anything like that. I personally, I think it's, somebody did an ugly patch. Somebody fucked up on Earth, did an ugly patch job, and then they launched it anyway. That's my personal opinion on the matter. So a mystery, not too much of a mystery, but who knows? Maybe we'll find out more in the future, because Roscosmos is presently looking pretty deep into it. Because I can't imagine, like, what must it be like to be one of the astronauts on the ISS, and you find out about this, and because you're going instantaneously like, what the fuck? Like, what the hell happened here? But one thing that's very interesting is, and that I think is an important takeaway from this, okay, is how quickly the response is to this. Like, I mean, they are moving fast. And if anything is remarkable and miraculous about this, it is how quickly America and Russia are working together on getting this shit fixed. Okay, and on figuring out what the fuck happened. That's happening very, very fast. And it's happening on Earth, and it's more so happening where it's getting fixed very quickly on the International Space Station by, really 3 different countries there, which one could argue 3 countries that their governments may not be the biggest fans of each other. That includes Germany. And I think the beautiful part of the story here to take in is that it is amazing that when we do go into space and we really are relying upon each other, just how quickly all of our differences fall away. And all of the bullshit politics happening on this little blue marble are completely forgotten and ignored. And all that we care about is that the other person, and that we're all okay. And that we're all okay on this little, space habitat that we happen to be living in. And I think that this points at the importance of getting to space. Because when we finally do get there and we take on that new frontier, we can finally accept new ideas, and we can let a lot of old ideas, perhaps like governments, completely fall away. And so there is, as fun as the mystery is of this, and at first shocking, and I, like I said, I imagine it could be terrifying for the astronauts that are up there. At the same time, there's a beautiful message here of just how quickly we can work together, set aside every single difference, no matter how heated the political horseshit is that's going on planet Earth. When we're in space, we got to take care of each other. I wish we could have that attitude here, but it's beautiful to at least see it in the stars, and I hope to see it more in the future. So anyway, we'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech. Maybe we'll we're going to get into some HackSec, but then maybe we can have some fun. So I'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech. Woo! Hey, I know what you're thinking. Wow, this is a great fucking show. And you know what? I agree with you. And I'm not just saying it because I'm the host. Woo! But I am the podcast champion, baby. And let me tell you, if you want to help out the podcast champion, you want to help out the Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow, Savzu, the rated R radio star, and you want to make Sovryn Tech an even bigger show, Here's how you do it. And don't worry, it's not for free, and you get something out of it. You go to Patreon. You go to patreon.com/SovrynTech, Sovryn Tech. Patreon.com/SovrynTech. Become a Sovryn Tech patron, and you will get access to literally thousands of hours of bonus content. There's new content every week. You get to be in the live Q&A hangouts that we do every month. You get to access to the Wednesday Q&A. Do you like that important messages segment? We do one every single week, and it goes a good hour strong, if not longer if needed, depending on how many questions there are. That's only for patrons, and all you got to do is at least $1 a month. Some do significantly more, and I'm honored by that. But become a patron, support the show, help it grow. Patreon.com/SovrynTech. And I thank you to all the patrons already out there and all the ones to come. Patreon.com/SovrynTech. Woo! Let's get back to the show.
HackSec.
It is time for HackSec, where we talk issues of hacking and security. Of course, on this show, hackers are heroes. And, you know, the people that usually get called hackers that are doing some kind of malicious act, generally we just call them bad actors, or we come up with other terms for that sort of thing. But someone emailed me and said, it's like, should we call them malackers? Like malicious hackers? And, you know, so much of that can be subjective at times, but this is one where it's not. This is actually coming from Sophos, which is, I think, a fine company that does some fine security research. And if you need security software, you know, certainly the one that I can recommend. But they have a blog called Naked Security, which I think is, I read from it often, actually, pretty much, you know, every week. Not on this show, but, you know, personally. So here it is. This is from September 6, 2018. Mobile spyware maker mSpy, and it's just the letter M and then spy, leaks millions of records again. And let's, from Lisa Voss, let's read the story here. It's one thing to slip spyware onto somebody's phone so you can surreptitiously intercept text messages, call logs, emails, location tracking, calendar information, and record conversations. That kind of privacy-spurning stuff. It's another thing entirely to be the company that makes and markets the software, and the coup de grace, to suffer a breach that exposes not only the private data of the buggers, but that of the buggees twice in 3 years. What are we talking about here? Stellan's going to tell you all about it. Yes, we're talking about mSpy, the, quote, ultimate tracking software, end quote. Runs on mobile phones and tablets, including iPhones and Androids. The company claims that it helps more than 1 million paying customers spy on the mobile devices of their kids and partners. In parens here, is it illegal? Well, mumble, totally legal if you tell the target, which of course you'll do, right? Well, anyway, it's your problem. End parens. The most recent breach, first reported by security journalist Brian Krebs on Tuesday, involves what he says is millions of sensitive records published online, quote, including passwords, call logs, text messages, contacts, notes, and location data secretly collected from phones running the stealthy spyware, end quote. The open database was discovered by security researcher Nitish Shah. It's since been taken offline, but while it was flapping open, anyone could query what Krebs said were, quote, up-to-the-minute mSpy records for both customer transactions at mSpy's site and for mobile phone data collected by mSpy software, end quote, all accessible without requiring user authentication. That includes usernames, passwords, and the private encryption keys of each mSpy customer who logged into the mSpy site or purchased an mSpy license over the past 6 months. Shah said that with the private key, anyone could track and view details of a mobile device running the software. But wait, there's more. Krebs reports, quote, in addition, the database included the Apple iCloud username and authentication token of mobile devices running mSpy and what appear to be references to iCloud backup files. Anyone who stumbled upon this database also would have been able to browse the WhatsApp and Facebook messages uploaded from mobile devices equipped with mSpy. That means that someone could have spied on an indeterminate number of kids besides others under mSpy surveillance, given that some parents install mSpy in order to keep track of their children. One of the testimonials from mSpy's site says this, quote, why did I decide to use mSpy? Simple. I am not going to sit and wait for something to happen. I read about Amanda Todd and other kids. Seriously, my son's safety costs way more than $30. End quote. Unfortunately, the blog goes on, unfortunately, when you collect this type of private information, you get a situation that's the opposite. And this is the exact point I would have made, but they're making it perfectly here at Sophos. You get a situation that's the opposite of keeping kids safe. You instead entrust a company with your child's details, stored as they are in a database that's a plumb target for scumbags such as trolls, stalkers, or child predators. The last thing in the world that any parent would want is for such people to have access to their children's social media messages or account details, let alone be able to track their whereabouts and eavesdrop on their conversations. But that, unfortunately, is the risk you run when you install spyware. You run the risk that anybody in the wide web can spy on your lover or child. Shah said he was ignored when he tried to report the breach to mSpy. Oh, so mSpy doesn't give a shit. Krebs had better luck after he contacted the company on August 30th. He got his reply from mSpy's chief security officer, who's obviously not doing his fucking job, Stallion breaking in there, who identified himself only as Andrew. Well, at least he understands security because it's probably not his real name and he's only giving his first name even if it is. But, he wants all of your data, right? Andrew wants everything about you and your lover and your child, but he can't even give you his fucking last name. Okay. Reading, what did Andrew have to say? If that's his real name. Quote, "We have been working hard to secure our system from any possible leaks, attacks, and private information disclosure. All our customers' accounts are securely encrypted and the data is being wiped out once in a short period of time. Thanks to you, we have prevented this possible breach, and from what we could consider, the data you are talking about could be some amount of customers' emails and possibly some other data. However, we could only find that there were only a few points of access and activity with the data." Krebs notes that some of those points of access are his and Shah's. They were both able to see their own activity on the site in real time via the exposed database. The first time that someone tore a hole in mSpy and published this database on the dark web was in 2015. At the time, for more than a week, mSpy denied the breach in spite of customers confirming that their information was involved. It finally acknowledged to the BBC that yes, the breach had occurred. It blamed blackmailers and said it was doubling up on security. Yet Krebs reports that more than 2 weeks after news of the first breach broke, the company still hadn't disabled links to countless screenshots on its servers that were lifted from mobile devices running mSpy. Would you really trust this company enough to put its software on your loved ones' phones? No, neither would we. To protect someone against doing it to you, make sure to secure your phone with a passcode that you don't share with anyone. It can help to prevent spyware like this from sneaking onto your phone. But anyway, so link is in the show notes if you want to read more about this. But let's break this down. I love how they just brought it up, that these kinds of apps, which technically are spyware, even if it's something that, say, a parent and child, like, they're aware. I don't know how much consent is exactly involved there, but that they're aware, okay, I'm installing this. This is going to see everything you do on your phone. To say nothing of what that does to the psychology, to the psyche of a child who's thinking that they're constantly being watched, right? Which, I mean, that's fucking terrifying in and of itself. But regardless of that, okay, even if, it's spyware, even if it's some kind of voluntary, shall we say, spyware. The beautiful thing here is that it brings up the point that no, because I get, even from libertarians, anarchists, a bunch of others, they tell me, oh, no. I willfully hand over this data. I willfully. I voluntarily, I want to give them this. I want them to spy on my phone. I want my lover to know what I'm doing. Blah, 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 blah. You have no idea what you're doing. You are putting yourself and your entire family in danger. Yes, you are. I hate to go that route, but you know what? If the government will say, well, someone please think of the children, I'll do it too. Will someone please think of the children? You're helicoptering over your kids, your constant spying on the shit that they're doing online, the fact that you're not demanding as a parent that everything be encrypted, that you're not teaching your kid, hey, little Johnny, I'm going to trust you because you're a little human being. That's what you are. You're a child. You're just a little human being and deserve the same rights. I am going to trust you. Okay. I want you to use Signal, little Johnny. Why? Because if you don't use Signal, if you don't encrypt the shit out of your tablet, out of your little Amazon Fire or whatever the fuck, please don't buy them an Amazon Fire. Okay, I don't care what kind of lifetime guarantee they give them. Your little, I got you a dark Android tablet from the Golden Stallion himself. Here, little Johnny. Even though I can't see what's going on. And you could be, I don't know what you could be saying, hell, you might even be watching porn. And look, I get it. I understand, why you don't want your kids seeing that. Whatever. Okay, I get it. I'm not making an argument for that. But whatever terrible thing that you could happen, I guarantee you that risk is far more palatable than the idea that some predator could come after your child because all of that, everything that they've been doing, all the text messaging, all this other bullshit has been going on and has been, is plastered on the internet, available for anybody to access. And I love how, mSpy, Andrew, if that's his real name, comes out at mSpy and says, well, there's only been a few points of access. You only need one to get all that data, and then you can just share it everywhere else. What kind of consult is that? Well, I mean, what kind of comfort is that? It's not. All it takes is one for all of this to be available for all time. Can you voluntarily hand over your data? Yes. Should you? Fuck no. Absolutely not. You should encrypt the shit out of everything, because if you don't, the unintended consequences, the things you don't expect, the leaks, the so on with the company that you were trusting are so dangerous. Oh, it's worth at least $30 a month. For what? For malicious actors to get access to your data, to get access to your children, to get access to your lovers? I mean, you're pretty much paying them to come and get them. This is why you demand the highest security standards. This is why you don't just hand over your data. This is why you don't use Facebook. This is why you don't use Facebook Messenger. This is why you don't use that company or that company or that company. Because they don't care about you. You have to look, I get it. I appreciate the abstract idea that these parents want their kids to be safe. And they think that if they can constantly spy on what their kids are doing, that makes them safe. What? No. Or they want to keep an eye on their lovers. And to get nothing, and I've said this countless times, every time that one of that Hangouts, when Hangouts was more of a thing with Google, until they figured out what the fuck they want to do as far as an actual messaging app. Okay. Like how, it can give, location data and all this stuff. And I said all the time, can we have a decent affair again in life? You can't have a decent affair anymore. But regardless of that, I'm kind of joking. You're putting everybody at risk when you put spyware of any kind onto those devices. And spyware takes a lot of shapes and sizes, and this proves the point. Oh, you think this isn't spyware because it's to keep an eye on your kid, it's to protect them? No, it's still technically spyware. The Google Play Store is spyware. Facebook is spyware. The Google search engine is spyware. But it's so helpful. I know so much. Blah, blah, blah. But how much danger are you putting yourself in? People don't think about it this way because they're constantly being sold on the advantages, but they're never being, because of marketing, they're never being told the disadvantages. Well, I am here. The Golden Stallion is here to tell you the disadvantages. That having all of this data about your loved ones puts them at risk. It doesn't protect them, it puts them at risk. I dare say, and I've said this for years, don't even post pictures of your kids online. Use encrypted apps and stuff for that. Take this shit seriously. Because this is what happens. And these companies, that response from Andrew, if that's his real fucking name, at mSpy was horrendous. That was not a response, because a response implies responsibility. And there's none. Do better, parents. You're not going to be able, don't pull bullshit like the NSA does or the CIA on your kids and be constantly spying on them. Don't do that to your lovers, to adults even. Trust them and teach them how to encrypt shit, and you encrypt shit. And you live with the idea. You're just going to have to, because you did 20 years ago, you had no problem with this. Live with the uncertainty that you're not exactly sure what that person's doing, but you trust them because you love them. There's nothing. Holy shit. If somebody said to me, hey, I want to put mSpy on. Look, and I honestly, I can be a very open guy. I really don't have anything to hide. Okay. In fact, I've made it implicit. If you're wondering, I've made it implicit or explicit with Stephanie. I've said, if you ever want to look at my phone, you can. I'll hand it right over to you and you can take a look. I'm not afraid of anything as far as that goes. Okay. But if somebody said to me, oh, I want you to put mSpy on there, otherwise I can't be in this relationship. See you the fuck later. Have a nice night, because you don't have a goddamn clue about what it means to be personally responsible in the digital age. Anyway, that's enough for this segment. I will be right back, and we'll lighten things up a bit. We'll be right back with some more Sovryn Talk.
The most incredible television event ever, as you join the crew of Battlestar Galactica.
Right here, you creepy crawly. I have led the entire human race to ruin.
The last of mankind, fighting for life in a hostile galaxy.
Most of us are dead.
Alone, with only one hope, Battlestar Galactica and her crew.
There is no other destination.
Commander Adama, Captain Apollo, the intrepid Starbuck, and the dazzling Athena, searching for a new and peaceful world.
May as well live for today. We might not have many left. Let the attack begin.
A new age of high adventure, Battlestar Galactica.
GameTalk.
Oh, the cracks in the surveillance society are starting to show, because that is in microcosm what is going on with the broader surveillance that the NSA, the CIA, GCHQ, and so on engages in. The FBI, go down the fucking AT&T, all those government organizations. It's microcosm of why it's a problem. It puts everybody at risk. If you don't secure your shit, encrypt your shit, everyone's at risk. So anyway, like I said, I want to lighten things up here. I really want to, believe me, I want to lighten things up here. So we're going to get into GameTalk, which is kind of, I love leaving GameTalk in. I mean, sometimes there's serious subjects to talk about during GameTalk, but usually it gives me a chance to cool down, and take a breather. I was going to get into, I think I might save this for next week, but I was going to talk about how Microsoft is now effectively turning Xbox, and I don't just mean like Xbox Gold, but they're turning Xboxes and buying an Xbox and so on into a subscription service. Kind of like how with Apple, you can pay for like a new iPhone. It's like $22 a month. And, you get a new iPhone, you can return it and all that. They've turned the entire Xbox hardware ecosystem into a subscription service as well, which I think is an interesting thing to look into. But we're going to talk about that more another time. A couple of the more interesting things that I wanted to get into this week. One of them was a new emulator, which there isn't a fully production ready, consumer ready version of this, but it's called WideNES. I thought this was a really cool thing. In fact, my Sovryn Tech co-host, Robin, who does the Star Wars update with me on Patreon, he mentioned it. He shared it on Patreon about WideNES. I haven't tested it out yet, but it's there. There's a link in the show notes if you want to check it out. I think that's pretty interesting. What it does is it adds on, or it allows you to see further. And I could see with some NES games where this could be really advantageous. Take, for example, Super Mario Brothers. Because you have a wide screen, and Mario Brothers, you have a 16:9 screen on average with your TV or your laptop or something. And but all these classic games are in 4:3, right? Like a classic, more squarish, still rectangle, but more squarish television screen. This allows you to see further ahead. It expands the map, the visible map of what you see on a game. So you could see further ahead, say in Mario Brothers and so on. This is still being worked on, but I think that's actually a really cool idea. And would shockingly, I think, make a lot of games a lot easier. But I would love to do an interview with the guy, because that's some pretty impressive coding to do. You're really remapping the game in a very real way. So I can see why it's still in development. That sort of thing is going to take time. Another interesting development that came out is, and this is called, I'm going to get my hands on one of these because I think it only ends up costing about $60 American. And it's called Classic to Magic. Okay. And the number 2, you can go to classic2magic.com. And apparently this is a device that you can connect to two of my favorite consoles, which are the NES Classic and the SNES Classic. Okay, the SNES Classic, which are the two mini consoles that Nintendo released over the past couple of years. You can connect this to it through the USB, and it will allow you to play Super Nintendo games like the cartridges themselves, which I just got from Retro 8-Bit, I think is the company. I just got my copy of R-Type 3 and Super R-Type that they put on one cartridge. They made, totally new Super Nintendo cartridges. It was great. And you could plug it into the back of it, and that would allow you to, plug in a Super Nintendo cartridge and play it through effectively the emulation layer of the actual, SNES Classic. This is a really, really cool idea. Not to say it's as great as like the analog or the Super Analog NT or whatever. It's certainly not as cool as that. But this is pretty cool to just expand the abilities of these, mini retro consoles that you already have. It has like emulators built into it. So I think you can pop an SD card on it and it'll play all kinds of games. A lot of, NES games and Super Nintendo games and so on. It's not, I think it becomes available in America. Maybe it's available now, but I was thinking it's going to be the end of the month, end of September, that it was going to be available. But I put a link in the show notes for that. And I think that's a really cool device. But now, the real thing I want to talk about this week is I think something, we're talking about Nintendo here pretty much the whole time, other than a little blurb about Microsoft. I think some very, very interesting things are going on with Nintendo right now with their present hardware. In this case, with, of course, really the hottest system in the world right now. And it really is. It's topping, the games for it are topping so many lists, and the console itself is topping so many lists. The Nintendo Switch. Now, again, everybody, ironically, so there's a lot of games. Nintendo's running both the 3DS and the Switch at the same time. Like, it's okay with both of those things, even though they're both, in a way, mobile platforms. Surprisingly, especially considering how old the 3DS is, even the 3DS, the new 3DS, right, which was the refresh done a few years ago, they're still treating it like it's a premier platform, and they are releasing premier games for it. Of course, we have the remastering of Luigi's Mansion, which is originally a GameCube title. That's coming out in middle of October, and there's a lot more. They have no signs of canceling the 3DS line anytime soon. But the irony with that is that that's actually pissed off a lot of really diehard Nintendo fans. Now, myself, I don't care. Like, I love the 3DS. I still think it's the best system out there. I'm not saying it's the hottest, but I still think it's the best system out there because of everything that's available on 3DS, as well as that it can play any Nintendo DS, the original DS games. Which is just a game library that is still unmatched. But it's pissing off a lot of the Nintendo faithful, and I think maybe new blood into Nintendo, because they want to play a lot of the classic Nintendo games, and they want to play a lot of these, or even like companies like Atlas, like they're releasing Etrian Odyssey, they're releasing a new Persona Q game for the 3DS still. Like I said, it's still a premier system. The 3DS is far from dead. These aren't, these aren't swan songs coming out. There's no end in sight of games coming out for the system, even though like a lot of the but a lot of the indie games may not be coming out for it so much. But it's been pissing off a lot of Switch owners because they just want everything to come out on Switch. And really, I think the solution is, because I still want games to come out for the 3DS. Like recently you had Captain Toad Treasure Hunter. I think it was the game that was originally for Wii U, and they came out with a new version that they released for Switch and 3DS. I think that's the real answer, is just release it for both platforms. Right, which they've done at other points too, Hyrule Warriors and some other ones, where that's kind of happened. Okay, that way you please these people, because I get their argument. But the interesting thing is the people that want all that stuff on Switch, they don't just want that. They don't just want the 3DS, the hot 3DS games that are only coming out for 3DS, like Samus Returns and so on. They want everything on their Nintendo Switch. And I think this is what's very interesting. Okay, now a lot of people, I want to give you, here's the story, and I put a link in the show notes for it. But there is a company that does a comic book subscription service, and it's called Inky Pen. Okay, now Inky Pen, it's not DC, it's not Marvel. It's not like Comixology Unlimited, even that. But they do offer varying series. I think they have like Dynamite and they have IDW, both of which are fine. They might have Valiant too. But certainly Dynamite and IDW, I think, and Boom Studios. Like, those are really small time companies that are putting out the best comic books in the world anyway. So, you're not really losing something if you don't get all the DC titles and Marvel titles on this. But anyway, they're going to offer their subscription service on the Nintendo Switch and allow you to read comic books on the Switch. Now, this is a great idea for a bunch of reasons. I mean, the Switch is effectively a tablet, and tablets are the best way to read digital comics, no doubt about it. So I think that that's great. You are going to pay a monthly fee. I think it's like $8 a month or something like that. And it's a pretty good variety. Like I said, if you get Boom, Dynamite, and IDW, like that'd be enough for me. That would really solve my comic book fix. I don't know if they're going to, because like Dynamite has Barbarella, which is a mature comic. Like right on the cover, it tells you mature reading. I don't know if they're going to block those from being on Switch. I think that would be kind of stupid if they do that. But this is, while it's interesting, the idea that you could read comic books on the Switch, the bigger story here is this is the first app, like real app from a third party coming to the Nintendo Switch. And what's interesting about that is that I think this is going to do gangbusters, because those people who, like I said, just want all that 3DS hotness also ported onto the Switch, Switch owners seem to want everything on the fucking Switch. And that's my point, is that like they want to treat it like it's their fucking computer. They want the Switch to be their device. And I think that that's really interesting. And now, if we want to go into some history, understand that Nintendo is not new to the idea of making an actual computer. I don't just mean a console. I mean a computer. Okay. You had, the Famicom disk system and so on. I mean, they have made, over the years, they had a full-on computer way back when. During the days of the NES and before kind of the Super Nintendo, and they actually supported it for years beyond that, and where it would connect online and you could do multimedia games there. I mean, it was really, really amazing stuff. It's a fascinating history to look into with the Famicom disk system. I mean, it was only in Japan, more or less, but it's interesting, so they know how to make a computer, and it kind of feels like we're getting back to that. And I would be intrigued if, at some point there's going to be a refresh to the Nintendo Switch, right? Just like there was the new Nintendo 3DS, just like how you have the PlayStation 4 Pro and you have Project Scorpio, right? Or whatever they ended up calling that for Xbox and so on. If Nintendo gets into where they come out with like a newer version of the Switch, I wouldn't be surprised if they added in a lot of things to where effectively the Switch becomes a portable computer, it becomes a tablet computer at the very least, and computer in the very traditional sense, where you could do just about anything on it. I mean, you have Labo and so on, so they're definitely interested in unorthodox applications for this technology. But yeah, I mean, as far as I can see, the excitement around, and I don't think this is actually going to launch until November, that it'll actually be in the eShop, Inky Pen. But this is interesting, this attitude that really people, like, they just want to carry around their fucking Switch. In fact, there's a picture. It's the most amazing thing where like this much older guy is sitting underneath a tree with his Nintendo Switch, and he's got his girlfriend next to him. Good looking gal, and just kind of like staring at him, and he's carrying it around like in a laptop bag or whatever. I mean, granted that's marketing and it's ridiculous, but this is really an attitude that people have about the Nintendo Switch. I don't think we are seeing the end of just how much the Nintendo Switch is changing the gaming landscape, certainly the console landscape. I think this might be the system that finally kind of smooths the line, blur, I don't want to use the terms blur, but all right, blurs the lines between console and PC. The PlayStation 3 tried to do that, right? Because remember, you could install Linux on the PlayStation 3. That was the thing for a while until they found out that's how you could play homebrew games on it and copies of games. And so Sony killed the feature. That's a whole long story. Thank you, George Hotz, whatever. But anyway, I think the Nintendo Switch might be the device that does that. And I wouldn't be surprised, and this is just a wild prediction on my part, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 5 years you have people who don't have, maybe they'll still have a smartphone, but they won't have a laptop, they won't have a computer, they won't have a TV. They'll just have a Nintendo Switch, and that'll do everything. Word processing, all of it. You have people blogging on the Switch. I could totally see that. This is going to be, November is going to be, the next fall for the Nintendo Switch is going to be interesting because we have the online service and so on coming out for it. But Inky Pen is, I'm curious what kind of money it's going to do, because I think it's leading the way for, maybe the Switch is the future of laptops in a very real way. Could be. Go Nintendo. I'll be right back with more Sovryn Tech. Hey, you heard about it at the top of the show. I have a whole new book out. Well, not whole new. If you signed up for the Sovryn Tech newsletter at zog.email, again, that's zog.email, you would have read some of these stories in an earlier form. But this is the Sovryn Universe. You love the fictional aspects of Sovryn Tech, baby. This is your book, Sovryn Universe, Volume 1. You can find it on Amazon, and it's going to be in all other places very soon. But for right now, if you want to get on your Kindle, get the ebook version, you get it on Amazon. You just type in Sovryn Universe, or there's a link in the show notes for this episode, and you can get your hands on it. It's only $2.99. It's a bunch of short stories, some of which are exclusive to this book. They will only ever come out for this book. They will never come out on Patreon. They will never come out in the Sovryn Tech newsletter. They will only be in this book. And boy, can I tell you, the ladies love these stories, okay? A pure hotness. You know I do erotic science fiction like no other. You want to get on this Sovryn Universe. You can go to zog.email to find the link for the book. You can go to Amazon and just type in Sovryn Universe, Sovryn, or you can find the link in the show notes. Check it out. Thank you in advance. Woo! Let's get back to the show. Go get it. Go get the book, Sovryn Universe, Volume 1. It's fucking awesome.
The Climax.
It is time for the Climax, where I can talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about. It could be a topic, could be a movie, TV show, comic book, hell, it could be anything. I'm going to tell you about my recent little adventure over the past couple weeks to Europe. That's what I'm going to break into here, so I don't know if that's a topic, but anyway, I think it has there are certainly some tech angles to get into with it, among other things that I think you might find interesting. Now, I went with Stephanie, and she and I might talk about it maybe on the Relationship Rhombus show, which comes out that's a Patreon-only show where we field relationship questions from Sovryn Tech patrons. Again, if you want to become a patron, patreon.com/Sovryn Tech, and then you can get access to that. We might talk about it more there, and she might give her take on it. But for now, you're going to get mine, because I am going to come at it to some degree with a tech angle and a little bit more. So we ended up we spent a couple days in England, and then we spent a couple days, actually ended up being really more of a week that we ended up spending in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands, of all things. And we did not do what usually Americans do when they go to Amsterdam. We didn't do any of that by choice. Okay, that's not my flavor. And then we did a couple days in Paris, France, and then we did a couple more days in England, and then we ended up coming back, like I said, just really the day after this is getting recorded. Not really feeling any jet lag. Like I said earlier, I used to travel the world pretty good, and I generally, I've never really had a problem with jet lag. When you first get back, the first day that you get back, if you get back late at night or something like that, it can suck and you just need to get some sleep. But, it's not something that affects me for the long term. Some people are feeling jet lag for a week after or something, that's never really been a problem for me. So anyway, when we ended up going to England, and, we did some fun stuff. We were visiting friends and whatever else, throughout Europe. That was kind of why it was a multi-country affair there. We also, when we went to Paris, we saw Janelle Monáe, which I'm a big fan of Janelle Monáe. I think she's just this fantastic mixture. We saw her in concert, what is it, La Villa or whatever it's called. Anyway, big venue. I've been to Paris before, so that wasn't necessarily a new thing for me. But Janelle Monáe, I think she's this mixture, and she's trying to be this. She's a mixture of Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, and Prince, kind of all rolled up into one. And I think she's fantastic. I really, really enjoy her music and a lot of her message. And if you've never watched Dirty Computer, holy shit, do you have to see that? But anyway, so when I got to England, first thing I said, I was like, okay, so I brought a phone that I'd be willing to dispose of, right? I also brought a computer with me that I was willing to dispose of. Now, in general, whenever we go to England, I like to land in Gatwick and not at Heathrow. Okay, England has London really has, two major airports. And I like to land in Gatwick because at Heathrow, they're very well known for wanting to look into your computer, look into your laptop, and they will ask you for your passwords if your hard drives are encrypted and so on. And I don't like to deal with that. So I generally like to land in the smaller of the two. And that's something for you to consider if you decide to go traveling. Now, landing in landing in the UK is a great idea in the first place because it's cheap to get there from the East Coast of the United States. And from there, it's cheap to get anywhere in Europe. Okay, so that's kind of a route you want to take. It's a good idea to go that direction because otherwise, it can be cheap to actually go to Iceland. There's some really interesting cheap flights for that. But you generally pick one of the two. I know there's another one that does Ireland, but that's the UK. So more or less. So anyway, I landed there, and when I got there, I was like, okay, I got this phone, what I'll call a burner phone because it's disposable. I'll get a SIM card there or whatever and deal with it. Now, it wasn't actually the way I had it set up. It wasn't a dual SIM phone, even though that was an option. But I use Straight Talk in the United States, and that doesn't work globally anyway. So there's no point to having a dual SIM phone with that being a part of it. But anyway, so I went to, there's a company called 3, which is probably the most popular. It's kind of the T-Mobile of the UK. And I ended up getting a SIM card there. It was about £20 for 12 gigabytes for a month. It would either go for 12 gig and then I'd run out of data, or it would go 30 days. And it gave me a phone number, the whole thing. The beautiful part of it was that Signal, which was based on my phone number, because Signal has, years ago switched from using SMS to just using your data connection. I could receive Signal messages no problem, even though my SIM card that is for my phone number in the U.S. That is how people connect with me on Signal. Even though that wasn't what it was for, it still worked beautifully. So that was a really great advantage, really to be able to have access to that. And I didn't have to put out a new Signal number, and I could still use Signal while traveling. Obviously, with things using other messaging services like Telegram and so on, that's not so much of a problem because those can also be based upon username and also use a data connection and don't require the phone to really be a part of it. An odd thing that happened is that because I couldn't receive SMS messages to my U.S. phone number, this is another knock really against using SMS-based two-factor authentication, like we were talking about earlier, that Instagram originally had, was that I couldn't get those codes, while I was traveling abroad, unless I used a service like T-Mobile or whatever that works globally. Okay, so that's something to consider too. That's a real problem with anything that attaches itself. In general, it'd be great if we could get away from attaching services and apps and whatnot to cell phone numbers. An SMS, because again, if you do want to travel the world a bit, that you can run into challenges like that. And it's actually something that held up the Sovryn Tech newsletter a bit because I couldn't get into my MailChimp account because that now it has, OTP authentication, and I've gotten all that switched over. And so the September issue of the Sovryn Tech newsletter should be out, or it should be out either at or around when you hear this. That's a real thing to consider, is that if you have any SMS-based two-factor authentication, if you start traveling the world, you might lose that. And it's it's so inexpensive, like 12 gig, using that. And the beautiful thing is that I don't like regulation, but bottom line being, in the EU, your SIM card that works, even though Brexit's going on and whatever, but bottom line, in Europe, that SIM card from Britain works pretty much everywhere. And it really did. And it instantaneously worked. And, the APN automatically updated and everything. I didn't really have to do it. It was such a simple process to put that in. And like I said, Signal still worked beautifully with my U.S. phone number, even though I was using a European SIM card. I had no issues with that. And that's the first time that's really been that simple of a process. And for £20, that's cheap. That is some inexpensive, because I pay for, now it's unlimited, but I was paying for 12 gig a month with Straight Talk. That was around $50 a month, as to where with 3, it's literally half that price. and the service was fast. I mean, it was great. I don't know how they get such inexpensive prices on their cell phone service, but it is. I mean, that's really, really cheap there. So anyway, that was interesting as far as that goes. There are, and also they offer free tethering with that plan. So I could just tether, my laptop to that. And again, I had what you could call a burner laptop that could get trashed if necessary. It was just a little $200 Asus job, Windows job that something happened to it, no skin off of my back. And I think it's a great idea to travel with to have these kinds of devices ready and travel with these kinds of devices if necessary. And look, I'm not telling you when you travel the world, with these devices that, you're going to have to rely on cloud services from Google, or you're going to have to rely on cloud services from Microsoft or whoever. I could easily connect to my NAS. I had to set up a VPN. Oh man, this was fucking annoying. So like I said, I'm kind of giving you more of the tech angle. I could talk a little bit about like what Europe itself was like, but I know I have a lot of European listeners, and so I'd be telling you about your own places. But anyway, Pandora doesn't work seemingly anywhere in Europe, and that sucked because I've really come to rely on that for my music. There's just some great offerings on it, and I had to keep activating my VPN, to be able to access that. There were some internet providers there that would block. I mean, like that. Even if I used a VPN, I don't know. They must have been putting some kind of, I don't know. There must have been some kind of cookie or something that when I go through their portal that would keep, even if I had a VPN going, that would keep like Pandora and some other services from working on it. So anyway, that happened. But by and large, I was able to access my NAS, my Synology NAS, very easily, and could listen to my music and listen to, or get access to files and everything. I mean, as long as you have a home base when you're traveling and you have like your own little server, like a NAS, like a Synology NAS or something like that. You don't have to rely on the big companies, and you can get access to this stuff, really anywhere. And I mean, it was, especially the it would have been a challenge. Granted, I don't watch a lot of YouTube videos, but I did watch some. It would have been a challenge, really, to use 12 gig inside of like a couple weeks. And if you're traveling, I mean, unless you're doing like a digital nomad or permanent traveler setup or something like that, for a couple weeks, I mean, 12 gigs a lot. Like you really don't even need that much. I don't think I even used 4. I didn't use like a quarter of that. Or, well, I guess that'd be a third. So I barely used it. And that was even hotspotting for a lot of people. Cause again, they offer free hotspot as to where usually here, you get charged for it unless you have a Lineage OS phone. But I was hotspotting for everybody else there because I was getting such great coverage throughout the entire continent, with that SIM card that I got. So, and a lot of this stuff I'm going to talk about in my Dark Android book, on how to go, when you're being a world traveler, and how to take advantage of this and how to use all that. But I'm, just sharing with you a little bit here. But again, all that was very easy to just plug that in and go. And like I said, most things, and as long as I had the VPN or whatever, most services were fine, and I could still use some of my, more American-based services. And accessing my NAS was never an issue. So that, just goes to prove how important it is to have your own cloud, not something that, relies upon Google or that could potentially be cut off when you go to any of these countries. My NAS was never a problem. Accessing that was never cut off by any of the internet providers or portals that I went through while I was in Europe. So, I mean, that's the beauty of it, is that your data becomes really agnostic in that way when it's your own and you're not relying upon something that may or may not work in the country that you happen to be visiting or residing in. So that was, the tech angle, that was great. I'll tell you. So, hanging out in England, I mean, I've been to England a few times now, and that was interesting, hanging out on the beaches and stuff like that. That was really nice. Not a whole lot to talk about there. Didn't really take in a lot of history as far as England this time. Going to Amsterdam, took in a lot of art. Went to the Banksy exhibit there, where they literally like cut out, because Banksy just will spray paint on walls and all whatever sidewalks and everything. They literally would carve these things out. I mean, you had the originals right in front of you. And, I know some people have issues with Banksy, but I think overall the message is pretty powerful, and I love art so much. And I'm a big fan of graffiti. I really, really am. I think it beautifies the world. It was so nice it was so awesome to like really experience that and to take that in. And there was so much art to take in Amsterdam. I love the concentration that city, which is a major city, but it doesn't exactly feel like one. Like it does and it doesn't. Like it's so quiet there. That it's hard to believe that it is such a major city and such a popular tourist attraction. But to take it in, and there's so much art there. It's beautiful. And there's so much history, including a lot of occult history, that I didn't exactly get to take in while I was there. But I'd never been to Amsterdam before. And that was, yeah, I mean, it's a stunning city. And, I took a boat ride through the canal system and everything, and you get to see so much through that. You got to see the Anne Frank house and so on. Like I said, though, there's the touristy stuff. But what I really want to see was like, no, I want to feel the city. I want to just walk around on the streets, right? And I got to do quite a bit of that as well. In fact, there's a whole monument there, which you'd miss if you weren't looking for it. And that's why I say that like a lot of the more touristy stuff, you're really missing what's at the heart of the city. There is it's a monument to homosexuality, in remembrance of people and it's really, it's something you got to check it out. I might share some pictures of it, on Instagram, for people to see, because I just think it's beautiful that there's this, venerating, people that have been oppressed just because of their, sexual proclivities and choices or not so much choices. And it's amazing to see that. And they have like amazing pride parades and everything in Amsterdam. I didn't get to see, all of that. So, got to see some other art from, MC Escher. There was at The Hague, where they have the originals there, the autographs, which that was, Escher is such mind-bending stuff, mathematical stuff. It's so beautiful to look at. I could talk about that for an entire segment alone. That was pretty amazing. But it really stood out for me. Again, just how, this is such a tourist destination. It's such a major city. Again, even though it doesn't necessarily feel like it. But it's just so quiet there. And that's so weird compared to like any city you go to really in the United States. Hell, even, some smaller cities in New Hampshire, like are eons louder than Amsterdam feels at all. And like I said, I was there for a good long while to really experience it. And that was really impressive. So, the concentration on art, on alternative living and lifestyles and all that, it was just, it really stuns you, when you go there. I know most people want to go there because all kinds of shit are legal and you can, smoke right in the middle of the city and nobody's going to bother you, blah, great. And really, I mean it, great. I'm glad that that's possible. And because, I'm totally for the decriminalization of any kind of drugs or alcohol or whatever. Okay. Enjoy that, go there, do that. But there's so much more to take in, at Amsterdam, in Amsterdam than that. And I was actually, I'll admit it. I was kind of disappointed that the bulk of the reason that people want to go there is to experience that and not experience the beauty of the city itself, and to take in the real, there is such a concentration on art there and so much more because, the Dutch Republic, which Amsterdam was a major part of, back, when it was 1581, something like that, when the Dutch Republic started. This was such a hub for the Enlightenment and for, like I said, also, honestly, the occult, which I think is really just science and just, the Enlightenment as well, part of the Enlightenment as well. And for so much culture. And I mean culture in the good way, as in like, art and poetry and, and all these other things. I don't mean culture necessarily like in the oppressive way, which it often is. The lack of concentration and the fact that I never hear anybody talk about that when they go there or when they want to go there is really kind of depressing to me because I didn't get to experience anywhere near all of it. But what I did get to experience was breathtaking, to me. And I definitely want to go back again. But so what? Like, okay, yeah, you can do drugs. That doesn't stop anybody in the U.S. anyway. So like, what's the big deal about going there for that? There's so much more to take in because so much of human history happened right there. happened within the Netherlands and so on. I mean, the history of the Dutch Republic, in fact, if you remember watching the classic Cosmos series with Carl Sagan, he takes an entire episode talking about the Dutch Republic. Now, granted, he's also a guy that enjoyed marijuana very much, but regardless of that, I mean, you just all the history and how so much science and art happened there. Why you wouldn't want to take that in? And yeah, you can do both, but I never hear anybody talking about, the other part, about taking in the history and the art that's there. It was really a privilege to be able to experience all of that, because there's so much of it there, and you just walk around and you see it. And that's just in Amsterdam, to say nothing of any of the other cities that were a major part of that. I mean, or, you could talk about the history of, oh man, yeah, there's so much to talk about there, but I want to move on from that. I don't want this episode to go too long. Then you also, so then we went to Paris, and we didn't really do any of the touristy stuff in Paris, and I thought that was nice. It was great to just walk around the streets of Paris, and it's interesting, when you just walk around the streets of Paris, you kind of see, there's like a segment of Paris that's actually kind of romantic. Now, I've been to other French cities, Lyon and so on, and I think I've always felt that they're far more beautiful than Paris ever was. But when you're just walking kind of the, sort of outside more of Paris, that drives home that, like this whole love affair that actually America, well, much of the world has, with Paris, is really a very small segment of what Paris is. But there were certainly some amazing things to see in Paris as well. We went to the Gustav Klimt. You can't even call it a gallery. It was this amazing, you have to see this if you can go there. It's officially called, and I've been learning French for months, but Atelier des Lumières. And it is this room you walk into, and there's just projectors everywhere, and there's just like this art that just gets projected all over the place, and there's this beautiful music. Sometimes it's opera, sometimes it's electronic or whatever, and that they're putting on display. And you are like walking through the art itself, and it's just projected all over the place, and there's a bunch of you that get to go into the room. I think it was like, I don't know, 15 euros or something to go into it, and you can be in there for like an hour, and you get to experience all these different, they're like short films, but they're completely immersive. They're completely surrounding you in this gigantic room. I mean, just like picture kind of like a roller skating rink, but without skates. And I mean, just the size of it to understand it. And it's everywhere. And it's absolutely stunning to experience the art in that way, and with the music and so on. I mean, I've never really been on a quote unquote trip, if you know what I mean. You know what I'm talking about. But I imagine that this is somewhat what it must feel like to be tripping. Okay, because it was like that. And it's breathtaking to experience that. I mean, it really is. And I know there's parts of America where there's a heavy concentration on art, but really, every time I go to Europe, it seems like I always end up going to some kind of exhibit. And it's always something just so powerful and unique that for some reason, I don't know, I never really experience that in America. And I know there's beautiful exhibits and galleries in America. I've been to them. Okay. I'm not saying there aren't. I'm just saying that there's always something that just blows my mind whenever I go there, whenever I go, overseas and see this stuff. And it was, yeah, I mean, that was really, really something. I can't even put it into words. You have to, it's like the Matrix. You have to experience it for yourself. But the Gustav Klimt exhibit was just breathtaking. So that was really something. Like I said, the Janelle Monáe concert, that was fantastic. That was, just a ton of fun. Her music, such a broad swath of music, but such a great, positive sexual message that exists within it. And I thought that was really a great time. And this whole time, again, I think a lot of people might not, would be worried, well, am I going to be able to connect to the internet or whatever? Like I said, that SIM card was just working everywhere. It was no problem at all. Even though this is the thing that I realized when I was on this trip is that I really wish, as much as I was concerned about, okay, I'm bringing burner devices, devices that can be thrown away if I'm crossing a border and they have some kind of a problem, I'll just be like, here, fucking have it, and I won't care. It really strikes you that when you're that concerned about it, not that I ran into any problems, but it makes me pine for the days when you didn't expect to bring a computer with you, and you didn't expect to be to be able to be in constant contact with people. And I would have just much rather gone on this trip with the people that really matter to me, And that way I didn't need like a smartphone to really communicate with them, and just like not to even worry about a laptop or whatever, and just pack super light. And I think I've talked about this on Sovryn Tech years ago. Like I would love to just kind of travel the world with, a journal and like, my Kindle e-reader, not a tablet, my e-reader. Okay. And that's it, and just really experience things and take things in, because it's so annoying seeing everybody constantly taking pictures. I mean, and I took pictures too, but like some people are obsessive about it. Or, we were talking about this earlier in the show with the Snap spectacles and everything. Like you're not really seeing the world. You're constantly seeing the world. Even if you're actually there, you're still seeing it through the 5.5 inch screen, right? What a pity. Because there's so much to take in, and I'd love to just pack light and just like turn off the world for a while, and actually turn off the world so that I could experience the world. I got to experience it still, but I mean, I still ended up doing a bunch of work and everything. And believe me, like I want to make sure the patrons have content. I want to make sure you're getting your episodes and everything, and I'd never change that. I make sure you have Sovryn Tech every single week. If it's a day late every once in a while, there's a reason, travel, whatever it is. But I always make sure you have a new episode every week. I've never failed on that. But there's a part of me, not that wanted to stop doing Sovryn Tech at all, but just that really wanted to like not so much worry. I've said this many times in the past couple of years, that I have come to define success as how much time can you be AFK? How much time can you be away from keyboard? And can you be permanently away from keyboard? Can you become permanently AFK? That's really successful. And I think if that's the metric of success, you find out that guys like Mark Zuckerberg and so on and so many other, they're not really successful because they can't do that. There's a real power, I think, in having that. And it's a funny thing because I remember traveling like in the late 90s and the early aughts. A lot of times I was thinking, I want to check my email. Like I was wanting to have internet connection wherever I went, and I couldn't have it. And now it's the exact opposite. I want to travel and I don't want internet connection. Like I really don't. I mean, I made sure that I had it and blah, 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 but I think I would have been, it'd be so much a more powerful experience and could have really like sunk in a lot more. I almost want to travel the world to get away from it, to get away from the internet. And this trip really, really highlighted that. And because you see how annoying it is when people you're with are constantly connected, even if you try not to be. And I still had to be because, I have clients and I have other people that I work with and whatever. But yeah, that really struck home. And also, at the end of it, it felt so good to have a home base, to come back to that was really, when I got back to America, when Stephanie and I got back, it was just so nice to have a home base waiting for you there. I know some people want to go like full digital nomad, and I totally respect that. And I know a lot of my listeners are digital nomads. But it does feel good, to have a home base to come to after, an experience like that, that you can just, because I think that helps with the stress of it, because it can be stressful to travel, to go to a bunch of different countries, constantly crossing borders, and you have all these authoritarian asshats that are fucking with you. And, it can be really stressful. And so, but if you have in the back of your mind that there's always a bed that you can lay in, that's a really important thing to have as well. So it's always good to come home. And to have a home, I think that's a really great thing, whatever shape that takes for you, So anyway, it was a very powerful experience, taking in all of that art, which I think everybody should do. Take in art, take in the world. That was a really wonderful thing, and it really hit home. No pun intended. It really hit home for me the importance of doing that, because it was very refreshing to do. But at the same time, it's also good to get back. And, of course, it's great to be back in the BDSM studio, which is where my little brand of magic gets created. But anyway, yeah, European trip, that was a hell of a thing. And I really recommend that people do that, and get out there, go experience that art around the world, and go experience the world. But do me a favor. As much as we love technology on Sovryn Tech, as much as we talk about how it can help free us, free yourself from it for a little while when you do so. And really let all of it sink in. Let the art sink in. Let the world, let what you can see around the world and all these beautiful cities and so on, and beautiful, geographic areas. Let that sink in for you, okay? Because it believe me, it's an experience. It's an experience in itself, okay? And don't let the technology kind of distract you. from really taking it in, and bring people with you. You can go alone too, and that can be a powerful experience in and of itself. But bring your loved ones with you, and really, all of you kind of get together and maybe take a little digital Shabbat from your tech and just enjoy what's around you. And yeah, it was, there were points on this trip that were absolutely a powerful experience. So again, we might talk more about it on the relationship around this show on Patreon. If you want to become a patron, go to patreon.com/SovrynTech. That'll be it for this week's Sovryn Tech. Woo! We're getting close to episode 300. We'll see what happens. I will see all of you on the other side.
You just experienced Sovryn Tech. Go to SovrynTech.com, that's SOVRYN Tech.com, and connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovryn Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.